Coming up now is another sparkling Two Mikes podcast.
This is Talk Sports Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, and he, of course, is Mike Parry. What on earth are you doing, delving about in the bin?
No, I'm not delving about in the bin. I'm retrieving recoverable material, which is important to the show.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What, you mean something you threw away by mistake?
No. Just retrieving recoverable material, which may be of essence to some of the somewhat detailed and complicated arguments I've got to put to you over the next 5 hours to try and prove the point that actually, although you understand the surface of an idea, I understand the innards of it.
And what about the depth, even?
And the depth.
Yeah, very good. A very good morning to you, by the way.
Yeah, very good morning, Mike. Great to be here
Delightful
again.
to be back here with you. And we've got an awful lot to talk about because when you think Roy Hodgson, after a game like the friendly against Norway, where only 40,000 people turned up, less than half of the number that turned up against Peru, well, he would be a little bit more sort of humble, and he'd be kind of worried that the game against Switzerland coming up on Monday, which is quite an important game. What he wouldn't be doing is swearing at the press, basically.
Well, I knew this was going to come. It was bound to happen. Now, the point is, if he's suddenly exploded with, frustration, or maybe anger, or maybe...
I don't think he likes being criticised, frankly.
Well, I totally agree with you. And if you've got a thin skin and you're England manager, you've got a bad problem. I remember when Bobby Robson was the manager of England.
Yeah.
And I think in only about his third home game at Wembley against Germany, we lost 2-0. I remember seeing him walking off the pitch, and I remember the crowd booing, and I remember him getting a really hard time from the gentlemen of the press, including myself, afterwards. And yet he just let it, he accepted it. He took it on the chin and said, yeah, it's terrible.
It's part of the game, he knows that.
Yeah, if you're not winning, then you're going to be subject to criticism, and football fans are not necessarily nice about their criticism because they're very passionate about it,
And I mean, the media, of which you've been a part for a long time,
yes.
You've seen it from both sides.
Longer than you have, of course.
Well, of course, you're a lot older than me.
No, I'm not a lot older.
What you mean?
No, I just got in a bit younger and achieved stardom a little earlier.
Because you didn't you peaked a bit early, I think, is what you mean.
No, I didn't peak a bit earlier, mate. I haven't reached my peak yet.
No, I know.
That is an absolute truism. I haven't reached my peak yet, honestly. Don't worry about that.
Listen, you are full of potential.
What I've done so far...
And I'm not worried about it, by the way.
I've done so far, mate, is merely the rehearsal.
Appetizer.
The appetizer and rehearsal for what's to come.
Yeah,
simple
excellent.
as that.
Well, we'll talk about what's to come a little bit later on.
Okay.
But let's talk about, from your point of view, the relationship the FA has between, with the press, because that is quite an important relationship. And I think it seems to me that the sort of relationship has broken down because there isn't a newspaper. I mean, I thought the newspapers actually last night were relatively kind to England because, it was a very boring game. 2 shots on goal. I mean, what was there to write home about?
Well, one of them was the penalty strike as well, which is an amazing shot. What
it was a great penalty.
I was going to say, what a bold penalty to take. I could have gone, right over the roof of the stand, but I couldn't. But I mean, you know what I mean.
He used the phrase, "I just put my laces through it." I
put my laces through it. Yeah, it was very good, wasn't it?
I didn't know anyone actually said that.
Yeah, they do.
I thought it was one of those things.
No. Yeah, I mean, the other great one is, he opened up his body.
Yeah.
How do you open up your body?
Yeah.
What I mean is, you got the right angle of standing against the board, yeah.
Well, we often hear people saying he opened up his legs as well, which is a bit of a weird one.
Well, that came from the David Coleman era, didn't it? Yeah. Juantorina going round the corner, opening his legs and showing his class.
Right.
That's the classic one, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
In fact, I think that started the column called Coleman Balls in Private Eye, which has been...
Have you ever been in that?
Oh, yeah.
You must be.
Oh, loads of times. Yeah. Loads of times. I see the Mirror cited me this week for what they said was a ludicrous comment.
A ludicrous
it wasn't.
Well, it was. I mean, you got your metaphors mixed up. You got your phrases
I didn't get them mixed up. The point is, I know exactly what I'm saying. If somebody at the Mirror's
That's
not
the
bright...
funniest thing you've said.
If somebody at the Mirror's not bright enough to understand my interpretation of metaphorical English, then what can I do about it?
Well, if you stay where you are, I'll tell you exactly what you said, because I've got it here.
I know exactly what I said, Mike. I know exactly what I said.
You're going to claim that you didn't mix up the words?
No, of course I didn't mix up the words. If somebody who can't handle the various derivatives of the English language...
Well, this is what you said. Balotelli will be a disaster from word one from the minute go.
Yes.
Well, don't you mean from the minute go?
No, I don't. I mean exactly what I said, OK? I don't have to say what everybody else says. I have to say what I believe is the way to express myself.
What is word one?
Word one is the first word in a precise argument. Look, I want to get back to these papers because I think we should do this one at a time. First of all, examine what the papers are reporting. Now, you're quite right. We can't bring audio of this because the way you just asked me about the relationship between the press and the FA. The way these things work is that we get our opportunity to stick a microphone under Roy's nose fairly soon after the game's finished, and the players in the what's the name of zone?
The mix zone.
The mix zone. Thank you. And then You go away to a separate room, and the lads who earn a living by scribbling, we call them scribblers, writers, obviously. They don't scribble anymore. They do it on laptops and update their copy.
Why are
and
you moving your
report.
hands as if you're typing?
Well, because I'm simulating what they do. You know, it's like this. Their fingers never stop. They're like, it's like actually, when you enter the press box at Wembley, it's like watching concert pianists, honestly, all the way through the game, because that's all they're doing. You know what I mean?
Do you know how to touch type, by the way?
Of course I know how to touch type.
Did you learn that then?
I taught myself.
Because I never did. I typed with about 4 fingers.
So, I tell you what, the only reason I ever got through a shorthand exam, because when you went through the journalist training course that I went through many years ago, you had to pass, 4 or 5 different tests. Law, knowledge of.
I bet you weren't very good at that.
Yeah, I was good at that.
Law.
Yeah, law, knowledge of local government, all that.
Shorthand.
Yeah, but the shorthand was the one I could never ever get right.
I never learned shorthand.
So what I did is I romanced a girl from Edinburgh, who came from a little fishing village called Port Patrick.
I know Port Patrick.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you?
I used to go there on holiday.
Oh, okay. So from Port Patrick, and her boyfriend, and we were all like 19 at the time, her boyfriend was a sailor, a fisherman, on a fishing boat.
So she had a boyfriend?
Yeah, she had a boyfriend.
You romanced her?
Absolutely. But there was a need for it.
And you say I have no moral compass?
No, hang on. There's a reason for what I did. It wasn't just lust.
Really?
It wasn't lust.
No, it was more cynical than that.
This boyfriend in Port Patrick, he used to go out on these fishing boats and 4 days out and then come back. And then, because
so you'd be keeping her happy in the meantime?
No, hang on. It was a family business.
It was a extraordinary story.
Hang on. He'd get about $2,000 in those days for a 4-day fishing trip. Right. And this is before all EU regulations came in. They'd go and catch as much fish as they wanted. So this kid who was 19 and was illiterate, by the way, because he'd been brought up in a fishing family and only needed to know the weight of a fish and all this kind of stuff.
So you're saying that fishing people are illiterate?
No, I'm not saying they're illiterate. I'm just saying that he was. And he was driving around in like E-Type Jaguars and all this kind of stuff. They were an amazingly rich community, because they had loads of money. But anyway, the point of the story is she came to this course. It was in Newcastle upon Tyne. So I wasn't doing anything irregular because she wasn't living with her boyfriend. But I needed to pass the
But she told you she had a boyfriend.
Yeah, Robbie in Port Patrick.
Robbie the millionaire.
Robbie, he's got this car. It's a really nice car. But I don't know, but it's got a big bonnet at the front, and just 2 seats and a little rack on the back. And it turned out to be an E-Type Jag. Showed me a picture of it, which he sent her. Didn't have any pictures on phones in those days.
No.
Didn't have any phones, actually.
No.
But that's another story. And anyway, so what happens is, and she was awestruck by my sort of knowledge of the world. You see what I mean? Because she came from Port Patrick, where nothing much has ever happened.
At that point, had you?
Well, I'd been a bit further than she had because, I was brought up in Chester, that sort of Merseyside, and, got into the old, football scene and all that kind of stuff, and had a decent education at the King's School Chester and the University of the Trent, and so I knew a little bit more about it. So, anyway... She was excellent.
How long is this story?
Well, she was very, very good at shorthand, so I decided to romance her. And during the shorthand exam, I made sure that I was sitting opposite her, and between us were 2 typewriters.
You cheated?
Yes, I got her to push.
So you admit that you cheated?
Yeah, absolutely. I got her to push the transcripted version of the shorthand test under her typewriter, under my typewriter to me, and I copied it all down.
Did the adjudicator not notice?
No, didn't notice.
That's a shocking story.
No, it's not a shocking story.
That tells me how
I would never have been here today if I hadn't managed to romance that young lady. Name was Helen, and cheated in the shorthand because they wouldn't have passed me as a trainee journalist.
And what about Robbie? Did he ever find out about this?
I don't know. I never saw Robbie. So, I mean, look, once the shorthand was all over, mission accomplished. You know what I mean?
Just dropped her like a stone.
Well, not really. There was
You're
another
a ghastly man, really, aren't you?
Actually, there was another lady on the...
Dreadful story. This tells me more about your character than anything you've ever said before.
There was another lady on the course. She was from the Blackburn Evening Telegraph, and she took a fancy to me as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but she wasn't so good at shorthand, so you weren't interested.
That's right, yeah,
what
absolutely.
What an appalling man you are. At some point or other, we will get to the point of the story. We are the two Mikes. This is Talk Sport. We'll be doing a stage show later on tonight.
Indeed.
For the first time live in front of an audience in North London.
Indeed. Out of here at 6 a.m. this morning. That's great. Get home. Probably kippers for breakfast, I would say. In my case. Yeah, I like kippers, yeah. Give you lots
I might have a bit more chicken biryani.
Chicken biryani. Honestly, do me a favour. It makes me feel ill. What is it in kippers that makes you good? It's called...
it's the oil, isn't it?
It's the oil, but it's called something else. It's called...
Omega oil,
Omega oil. It's the Omega oil. It does your bones a lot of good and your brain a lot of good.
Right.
So that
Maybe
means...
you should have had some before you came in tonight.
What's
your preferred form of cooking a kipper?
I don't. I've told you before. I get it out of a tin. And no, it's easy. It's easy. Honestly,
Why don't you buy fresh kippers?
Well, why would I buy fresh kippers when I can get them out of a tin and they're in perfect form?
Well, they're not hot, are they?
Well, I don't like them hot. I don't like kippers hot. No, I have.
Do you not know that the best way to eat a kipper is to basically warm it gently under the grill, or you can bake it and then have it with a poached egg?
Oh, well, I don't eat eggs, do I? I've never eaten an egg, so I wouldn't do it like that.
Pathetic. So you're going home and you're going to be poking about in your cupboard like something out of the wall.
No.
And opening a tin with a little key and using a fork and eating it out of the tin.
No, don't be ridiculous. You put them out on a plate and then you get some fresh bread and you get some vinegar and a bit of salt and other things.
Other things? Like what?
Tomato, chopped up tomato.
Oh, yeah.
And that is...
Because you know how to live, don't you?
Fantastic and nutritious.
So will you be stopping off at the bakery on the way home?
Yeah, I will.
Some fresh
rolls I will. Yeah, I will. But I eat off bone china plates anyway, mate, which makes it taste better. Do you know that you eat off red plates, by the way?
Red plates?
Yeah.
I thought everything in your house was blue.
It is blue. I haven't got any red plates. But if you eat off red plates, it stems your hunger.
Really?
Yeah, it's scientifically proven.
Any particular kind of red? Is it crimson?
Well, no, red is red, isn't it?
Well, no, there's lots of different... I mean, you're a painting expert, as you're going to reveal later on in the show.
Rubbish. What I'm saying...
There's many number of shades of red.
No, what I'm saying is, if you eat... yeah, all right, there are, but, if something's red, it's not yellow or blue or green, is it, right?
Very true.
So stop being pedantic.
Yeah.
And the
I'm
point
looking
is...
forward to your description of Constable's finest works.
I don't know what you find that amusing. I don't find a single element of humour in that. And if you eat off these
red plates,
it stems you. I eat off bone china plates, and the thing is,
are they white?
Yes, of course they're white, and it makes.
I thought you said everything in your house was blue.
Most things are blue. White is also acceptable. Blue and white, that's the colours that I live my life by. Bit of yellow stripes. I've got curtains which are blue, yellow and white stripes, okay?
Lovely.
Yeah, and that's all right. And the carpets are not royal blue because I thought that was too dark.
And your car's black?
Picks up... no, my car's gun barrel grey. And...
it's not blue either.
Sorry?
Well, it's not blue, though.
Well, the last one was blue. And the carpets are pastel blue, which is a lovely colour for a carpet. And but I might get replaced soon, because I'm getting a bit tired of them. But anyway, that's the point of the story is...
you have to replace carpets every so often, don't you? Because they get a bit worn.
Well, mine hardly get worn at all. Nobody ever walks on them with shoes on them.
You've got your indoor slippers, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. Got indoor slippers. To be honest, I've never had to replace carpets in anywhere I've lived.
Really?
But I never have usually lived anywhere more than about 2 or 3 years, if you see what I mean. Now, I've lived in the place I've lived in now about 7 or 8 years.
Right.
So, it may be time. But I might move out and go and live somewhere else for a while and have the whole thing renovated,
Really?
New bathrooms, new kitchen, new carpets.
Where would you go?
I'd go and live in one of my other
places.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And do it that way. But we'll have to see. The point is, we weren't talking about this, were we?
No, we were talking about David Beckham's son.
Beckham's son.
Because you put out a tweet a little bit earlier on before the show started about how I educate my children.
You sure we're not talking about Wayne Rooney's son here?
Isn't that what I said?
No, you said David Beckham.
Yeah, no, we did mean Wayne Rooney's son. Quite right. Yeah.
See, do you know your own mind? Do you know what you're on about?
I don't know my own mind.
No, you don't. Certainly don't.
Working with you has absolutely befuddled me.
Well, I'm sorry, you've got to keep up, pal, because
it's not easy.
My brain works faster than the average brain, and that is absolutely true. That's not a boast.
Have you had it measured?
If you can't keep up with it, then fine. Now, what we're talking about
it was
here,
Wayne Rooney's son.
Wayne Rooney's son, who looked absolutely delightful to everybody in his new school uniform. It was to memory. It was a striped blazer.
Yeah.
It was a cap, his regulation sort of short grey trousers, his long socks, his black polished shoes, and he looked a picture of what every mum and dad in the world dream of on the day that their son goes to school for the first time. So, Wayne is captain of England now, got a massive job on his hands, captain of England, captain of Manchester United, but he can take comfort in the fact that his son is starting his journey in life by going to school. Now, you just told me you wore a cap, but of course you didn't go to a decent school, did you?
I went to a very good school, yeah.
But it was a state school.
It was a state school. There are many great state schools.
So it was average then?
Well, no, it was a pretty good school, I would say.
Well, I'd say it was average.
You talking about primary school or secondary school?
Primary school.
Primary school was okay. Secondary school was very good. It was a grammar school.
Oh, yeah? No, you didn't go to grammar school.
Yes, I did.
You've never told me you went to a grammar school.
Well, I may not have told you that.
I tell you all the time. I went to a direct grammar school.
I went to a grammar school.
That was one of the finest. What was your school called?
Cardinal Vaughan School. It's now a private school, actually.
Cardinal Vaughan?
Cardinal Vaughan.
Is it in the, what's called the Headmasters' Conference?
I don't know.
Well, you should know, because if it's not in the headmaster's conference, it's not a public school. Mine was a public school.
No. It was a state school. It was a state grammar school, one of the few state grammar schools that still existed at that time, and that was why I went there. I had to pass my 11 plus to get into it.
Oh, I see. Right. And then did your father have to pay any money to keep you there?
No.
Right. Okay.
It was a state school. I just told you.
Right. Now this is
my father didn't believe in paying separate money for education. He didn't believe in private education.
Now do you believe in private education?
No, I don't either. I think he was right. Because I think one of the great problems in this country is that we have private schools that run alongside state schools. And what that means is that you immediately separate people from each other. Whereas what you should have is that people should all go to school in the same way.
No, that's rubbish.
And then they would all mix with each other.
That's rubbish.
What we have now in this country is this group of elite people at the top. Hang on, I'm still talking.
Go on.
I know you're not interested in what I have to say. You've made that very obvious. But, once in a while you just have to listen to what I've got to say and try and
stop wasting time and
take it in. Right, what I'm saying is that, you have a group of people, you might have seen a study that was done recently, top of the BBC, full of public school educated people.
Saw that.
The Houses of Parliament, full of public school educated
Government.
people. Top, law firms, full of public school educated people. And all of that creates an elite. And
What's
what
wrong
it does.
with that?
I don't really care what school people went to, but what I do care about is the way that it creates resentment amongst people who can't afford to go there.
Well, you see,
and what I think is if that money was spent better by those parents who happen to have so much money they can spend 20 or 30,000 quid sending their kids to school every year, then we would have a much more equal society. And I believe in an equal society.
But yours is the argument of the blockheaded loser.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. You're a blockheaded loser.
No, I believe in democracy. I believe in every man, woman and child having the same rights.
So do I.
And if you have an elite system where people can go to private school and then move on and get better jobs because they happen to know people in that arena, that's wrong.
Well, I don't believe in elitism, and I don't believe in what's it called, nepotism. I don't believe in nepotism. But let me put this to you: you probably spend. Well, I know exactly what you spend on cigarettes. 2 packets of cigarettes a day. That's £15
it's the same old argument.
a day. Hang on. 7 days a week. That's 7 tens. That's over £100 a week. £100 a week is £5,000 a year.
Yeah. That wouldn't get one of my children into a private school.
Your booze intake is twice that, so that's another 10,000. That's 15,000 a year, right? Okay. Now you could give up your loose lifestyle, because I know what you do at the weekends. You go down to your country place and you get bladdered on wine.
That's not true at all.
Yes, you do.
No, I work the grounds.
You work the grounds.
Yeah. I burn things. You know I do.
Yeah, and I also know you get through voluminous amounts of wine at the weekends. I know it, don't deny it.
I have the odd glass of red. What's wrong with that?
Odd glass of red. Now, what I'm saying is, you saved all that money and put your children into a private school.
I don't believe that.
They'd have a better start in life. Now,
I don't agree with
I'm
that.
saying about grammar schools is, grammar schools are a release for kids from the poorest possible homes to have the very best education. But the reason that politicians will not extend grammar schools is because they're so much better than state schools. They don't.
Well, grammar schools used to be part of the state system.
Yeah. Hang on. They don't want to support any other form of education except the one that they set up, the comprehensive education system. It's so poor, let so many of our children down. They don't want to admit that by supporting any other form of education. That's what politicians do. That's why they're so hopeless.
No, they also don't
That's why we're in the mess we're in. That's why the world is in flames. That's why we need real leaders in the world. And if people like, for instance, Sir Terence Leahy ran this world, rather than boneheaded politicians who have
get off your soapbox
hang
for a
on,
second.
no knowledge of running anything,
knowledge
of running anything. Don't worry, we've got plenty of time. No knowledge of running anything, then the world would be in a better position.
Well, it would be in a better position, but one of the other reasons that all of these politicians make those decisions, because the state school system is not as good as it should be, I agree with you about that, but one of the reasons is that all the people making the decisions about the state school system have never been in it. They're all in private schools, and so when they get to the point where they can decide how everybody else should be educated, they don't want to change it. And as long as there is a private sector in education, there will never be equality in education, and it's a pain in the neck for me. And I'm not going to throw money at private schools, some of which are not that good.
Because you want to spend it on yourself.
Some of which are not that good.
Indulging in drinking and smoking.
Some of which are not that good, just for the sake of supposedly putting my kids into an elitist system.
Shall I send my son to a decent school or have another 6 bottles of Pinot?
Look into the light for a moment. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sports Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham and he is Mike Parry. We are together at the two mics, of course. We're going to talk to Lisa Daly in a moment, Mike, who's an expert on relationship matters, I suppose we should say, for want of a better word. Best-selling author of a book called Stop Getting Dumped. Mm-hmm. William says this on at the two mics. Porky's book should be called The Diary of a Caring Citizen. Yeah. I think his tongue is very firm in his cheek for that one. And Tom says, how about these titles for Porky's book? Only When the Boats Aren't In, or the kamikaze pilot that completed 25 successful missions.
yeah. Well, you know, if you keep missing, coming back, you have to volunteer your plane to somebody else and perhaps you get another go.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, let's talk to Lisa Daly, because there's a survey that's come out which has actually been released to mark the release of a new film called Neighbours, which is a rom-com. You know what a rom-com is, don't you?
Yeah, it's a romantic comedy.
Very good. Yeah. Starring Zac Efron and Seth Rogen. And basically, 3 out of 4 women say they prefer chubbier guys, which is good news, to be fair to both of us, I suppose. Let's talk to Lisa Daly, who's over in Florida in the US of A. Lisa, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, you obviously spend a lot of time in your TV show and when, in the books that you write, looking at people's relationships and looking at the state of them in this modern day and age that we are in, 2014. Is this true? Do you think that more women than not would say that they don't really care if the guy that they're with is a little on the heavy side?
I actually think that it is true. It's kind of interesting that the study that you're referring to said about 75% of women, which is an amazing number, I think, for guys. But yeah, women feel so insecure about their bodies. I mean, they just are crazy about it. And the fact is, they'd rather date a guy who's a little overweight, so that they don't have to feel like they have to turn the lights off, or strategically place lingerie, or say, don't touch me over here, but don't touch me over there. So absolutely, I think it's true. And there have been a number of studies in other contexts that have found actually that aside from the U.S., women are more attracted to men with more round faces. Now, in the U.S., we are kind of squirrely over here. I think it's all the movies and the media. We like the big chiseled jaw. But everywhere else on the planet, they like guys who have a little fullness.
Well, how does that add up then, Lisa, that guys who are better looking, i.e. slimmer, seem to get a lot more girls than, people like my broadcasting partner here, Mike Graham, who could be amply...
Well, that's not true, actually.
Could be amply described...
That's not true. You've just been maligning me, saying that all I do is go on the prowl for women, and I'm quite successful at it, actually.
Yeah, but you prowl for so many women, at least 1 in 10 is bound to succumb to your so-called charm. So, Lisa, what I'm saying is that, when I was about sort of 18, I had a mate called Kevin, and he was about 6'2", he had long blonde hair, he was a good footballer, so he was slim, and I was a bit shorter and a bit rounder. He always got the best-looking girl.
Well, and there's something to that. When you're 18, you're not exactly making the long-term choices, and probably you're going to be in the best shape of your life. So if you're ever not going to have a body issue, it's going to be when you're 18 or 19.
Mike Parry, I can tell you, Lisa's never been in the best shape of his life, even when he was 18. I mean, that was about as good as he looked.
No.
Yeah, he's trying to confuse you. He's trying to confuse you, Lisa.
But, the interesting thing is...
Well, it's the two Mike things. You guys threw me off there for a second.
It is, yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard to tell. He's the one that speaks with a slightly strange accent.
Can you let Lisa speak? She's our guest. Can you let her speak?
I'm going to ask her a question. What I was going to say, Lisa, is a bit of a double standard, because no matter how many men you would ask this question of, they don't like fat women, basically. They don't want a woman to be overweight, do they?
That is absolutely the truth. And men are a lot more visual than women are. Women care about, about other things. And the truth is that you guys are really attracted to something that's very specific. There's something called the 0.7 hip-to-waist ratio. So basically what you want is for a woman to have that hourglass figure. And if she's a little bigger but she still has that hourglass, that's okay for you guys. But we are not as visual. And the truth is that women feel so much pressure now to have these perfect bodies that you don't want to be naked with a guy who is going to look better than you. And it's a terrible, terrible thing that people are concerned about that, because the last thing that you should be thinking about when you're sleeping with someone is, whether you jiggle more or they do.
No, that's a point. Now, Lisa...
what a horrible thought.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Graham has just made the very cruel observation that men don't like...
How's it cruel?
Well, hang on. Men don't like women who are weightier or heavy or or even, to use that horrible word, fat. Now, a few years ago, I was going out with a girl who was quite slim, but had the capacity to...
Did she have a boyfriend at the time?
That was me. That was me.
All right.
But who clearly, I could see in her genes and her bones, she had the capacity to perhaps put weight on as she got older. And I was trying to weigh up what to do here. And then I met her sister, and her sister was 4 years older than her, and she was very big, and she'd expanded in the last few years. So I left the girl I was going out with as a precaution because I thought she might get very heavy. Now, is that
This is the kind of person I'm dealing with.
Hang on.
This is the guy I work with, Lisa.
Hang on.
That's just a teensy bit shallow. Just a teensy bit that predicting that she might perhaps become overweight and just knowing that. And so,
well, I didn't want to take the chance.
Connection with her, your only connection with her was physical?
Oh, no, there was some emotion in it somewhere. But
this is a guy, by the way, Lisa, that only dates women who have less brains than him and who make less money. He's a terrible misogynist.
Oh, that's really nice, isn't it, Lisa? No, what I'm saying is I was, in fact, being kind, because had the relationship gone on another 2 or 3 years and I'd become emotionally embedded with this woman, then it would have been much harder for me to turn round and have to say to her, look, I'm sorry, but I find you physically repulsive, so I'm leaving.
Well, and that's never really a good conversation to have.
Well, exactly.
When you're telling someone that you're physically repulsed by them.
Well, exactly.
It's never a good time to have that conversation, really, is there?
Right.
No,
there never really is. There never really is. There's never a good moment where you're like, oh, the lighting's perfect, the food is delicious, and by the way, I'm repulsed by you. Yeah, it's never.
Right,
it's never a good time. So I don't know if your timing is cruel. I mean, here's an interesting thing. So as you get older, you're going to get less attractive. You're going to get heavier. You're going to grow those crazy nose hairs. You have stuff sprouting out of your ears. And at that point, do you think maybe that you might be more forgiving of a woman with a less than perfect body?
Well, I'm not sure you would, Lisa, because here's another example of what happened.
He's a very cruel man.
Hang on. Here's another example of what happened to me.
Let's talk some more about you.
No. I just want to use a personal example.
Yeah, why not?
Just shut up a minute. I'm talking to Lisa. She's an expert. You're not. So I go out with this girl
I would beg to differ,
between the ages of about sort of 20 and 22, and then we're both in journalism. Our careers sort of split apart. And then 20 years later, literally, I end up in Newcastle upon Tyne where she worked, and I hadn't seen her for years, and I thought, I'll look her up. I was doing a job up there, okay? So I rang her up.
Stalked her?
No. It was the opposite. I rang her up and said hi, and her voice was absolutely sweet, honestly. She had the most gorgeous, breathy sort of female voice, very seductive, and she sounded just the same. So I thought, great. So I went to meet her, and luckily I saw her before she saw me, and she was 3 times the size that she used to be. So I didn't go ahead with the meeting.
What, you just didn't turn up?
Well, I did a U-turn.
You're in the coffee shop?
This guy's unbelievable.
No, I did a U-turn.
It's literally unbelievable.
No, I was due to meet her in a pub, but as soon as I spotted her, I thought, God, that can't be her. Yes, it is. Good. And I recognised her face, so I did a U-turn and went out. And then I just sort of, I wasn't unkind. I texted her later saying I'd been called away on a job. And
well, she might have seen you though.
But she would have seen in my face the sheer shock and repulsion of me looking at her 3 times the size that she used to be.
Well, she might have thought, what's happened to all that hair, lovely red hair that Mike Barry it's all gone white.
Well, she might have done. But
he's about 3 times the size as well.
I didn't subject her to that discomfort.
Lisa, as you can see, Lisa, it's a lost cause trying to help Mike Parry out. I mean, he's never been married. It may come as no surprise to you that he's never been able to find a woman to settle down with.
Well, that's not my fault.
And it doesn't look like he's going to have any chance before he dies now.
Well, just go on.
He can just always do the trade-in program where, he just continually after, 5, 6, 7 years trades down to the next younger model. If that's the most important thing, if looks is the most important thing, then surely there is a plan. There's someone for everyone. So surely there is someone out there for you.
And it'll be someone that's already belonging to somebody else. That's his other favourite trick, isn't it?
No, not at all. Lisa, whilst we've got you on the line, and thank you very much indeed for your contribution to this, you've brought sense where I was getting no sense from my broadcasting partner here. Now, here's another issue which I want to ask you about as an expert. There's a story in one of the papers in England today about a couple who've been married for 80 years. 80 years, right? Now,
80.
80. Now, that is ludicrous. Anybody who wants to spend 80 years with the same human being, frankly, he's got a screw loose. Do you not think that in future generations we will all have to gear our lives to the possibility or almost the certainty of going through 2 marriages and 2 families in a lifetime because we're all living so much longer?
I think that's already happening now, and people are actually just looking at the trends over the years, from the 50s till now. There's actually a trend of not just 2 marriages, but going on 3, sort of this. Yeah, this sort of starter marriage, which is really more popular here probably, but this kind of starter marriage where you're young and you're starting out in your career, and then sort of the second marriage where you're having children and you're raising them, and then there's the late in life marriage.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting where people, you're absolutely right, they live a lot longer. It's not very often that someone wants to spend 80 years with the same person.
Absolutely.
It's lovely.
Get
It's
bored,
lovely when it happens.
I get bored sitting in the studio with this guy for 5 hours.
Well, hang on, Lisa. This guy who's sitting next to me is already on his second marriage, right? And the way he treats his family, it doesn't look good for much longer. So
it's not looking good. But he just gets the one more. That's it. Then you're done.
That's right. Yeah. And by the way, he's got this appetite for this sort of thing. It won't just be 3, in my view. This guy it won't just be 3.
Lisa, listen, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Lisa Daly, who came up with probably the best description of you of any of our guests ever on any show.
Oh, what was that?
Shallow. That's exactly what you are.
Shallow.
We are the 2 mics. This is Talk
Swimming
Sport.
pool shallow,
Loads
mate.
more coming up.
That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Lie down on the couch.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. We are the 2 mics. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. Sandra has tweeted at IROMG. She says, I'm trying to sleep but can't, as you two are making me laugh so much listening to you talk about relationships. I have to say, I think that lady, Lisa Daly, really summed you up in just one word, which was shallow.
Well,
because
I think that's ridiculous.
Hang on, let's look at the 2 stories you just told there.
Yeah.
One, that you went to meet an old flame
Yes.
who you hadn't seen for 20 years. She
That's
sounded
right.
nice on the phone.
That's right.
But when you saw her walking into the pub that you'd agreed to meet her in,
Yeah.
you basically turned around and went the other way.
I did.
Because she'd put on a bit of weight.
No.
Shallow.
She put on a lot of weight,
It
honestly.
doesn't matter. It's shockingly shallow. Why couldn't you have just met up with her and had a chat with her anyway?
Well, because
was it only some kind of carnal desire you were fulfilling here?
Well, she was a very pretty girl when I went with her 20 years before.
Yeah, but
very
why
pretty,
couldn't you
long
just
black
spend a
hair
nice afternoon with her, having a
chiseled
drink?
features, and those features had disappeared into a blob of a face. You know what I mean? And I'd have felt very uncomfortable sitting
Why?
at the table having a drink with her. Well, because
Why can't you have
I
a
was
drink
looking
with
at somebody who I didn't recognise. To be honest, that's what it was all about. And
Well, maybe
and
if you were really
wasn't-
her friend, you might have wondered why that had happened.
I
and you
wasn't
might have asked her
able
about
to
it.
recognise that. Funny enough, she went through life without getting married, and so did I. So the shock of losing me must have really hurt her, and she never actually
Well,
got
I'm
around.
sure-
and
well,
maybe
I'm
that's
sure-
why she put weight on. Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
it's very possible, and
Yeah, it
I'm
is
sure
possible.
that would not have helped her then to discover that having decided
And by the way,
having agreed to meet her,
Yeah.
you then bottled out of it
I did.
and made up some ludicrous excuse.
Well, I didn't make up a ludicrous excuse. The point is, our job is full of, and her job was, she was a crime reporter on a local paper, and her job was full of, disappointing rendezvous that never happened because the job got in the way. So she understood perfectly. There was nothing wrong there. It wasn't like I hurt her by saying, I've just noticed that I find you physically unattractive now, so I've decided not to meet you.
But don't you think that since she didn't then offer to reschedule the meeting, that she might not have got that impression?
I was only in town for 2 days. We'd gone up there to do an England game, actually, at Newcastle's ground when England were on the road. So I only had a few hours to see her anyway. In fact, what I did is I bolted out the pub and went down the road and joined Brazil again. It was with a couple of old footballing mates, and
Well, I thought you went in the pub, though. I thought you saw her in the street.
Oh, no, I didn't. No, I went in the pub and she was actually in there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't abandon her because it was the pub that all the local newspaper people used anyway, so she was amongst friends. So it wasn't a problem. I wouldn't
Well,
abandon...
I'm glad that it doesn't bother you.
I wouldn't
Well, how
abandon a
about the
lady
other
like
story?
I wouldn't abandon a
How
lady
about the
like
other
that.
story
Wouldn't abandon a lady
that
like
you
that.
decided to dump the other girlfriend on the grounds that she might end up looking like her sister?
Well...
That's totally shallow.
No, it's not shallow.
Completely and
no,
utterly
it's not shallow.
disgraceful.
You've got to remember, Mike, you see, you think that I'm not entitled to talk about relationships because I've never been married.
That's not what I'm saying.
But in fact, I'm more entitled to talk about relationships than you are because
I think everyone's entitled to talk about
I've
relationships.
approached every relationship with a pragmatic head. And the pragmatism, which I've used throughout my life in relationships, is will this work? And I've looked at it and decided that one won't work, and then the next one won't work.
Do you want to say that again?
What?
The pragmaticism.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure that's what you mean.
Yes, of course I mean it.
You don't mean pragmatism.
Yes, of course. That's what I mean. But what I'm saying is, what
are you saying?
What I'm saying is,
You're trying to justify a completely and utterly
You have staggered into relationships.
shallow, selfish lifestyle that you've lived all your life, which is why you've ended up with nobody apart from yourself.
Oh, I see. I've led a shallow and selfish lifestyle.
These are not my words. These are the words of Lisa Daly, the best-selling author of Stop
No,
Getting
she
Dumped.
didn't say that to me.
She said it was shallow.
She did not say. She said that, that could be determined as a shallow approach. She didn't accuse me of being shallow.
Yes, she did.
No, she didn't. But listen, when it comes to selfish, you go into a relationship, you get married, you have children, and then you push off and you abandon the wife and you abandon the children. So don't tell me I'm selfish, pal, when it's you who goes round...
I'm
sorry, it's you. Don't do that to me.
Have I hurt you?
And you go around the world abandoning people and leaving them in distress. I've never abandoned anybody and left them in distress.
I mean, funnily enough, you see, you can't remember what you said because you were just saying to this woman, should it not be the case that we both, everybody now has at least 2 marriages because we're living such a long time?
Which you've already had, of course.
Well, yeah, but if I was to say to you, well, that's normal behaviour, you tell me that I've got the morals of an alley cat.
Yeah, you have got the morals of an alley cat because what I'm saying
she's saying that people can be married 3 times now.
No. Exactly. Now, what I'm saying is, if you look at a marriage of 80 years, that could easily have been a first marriage of 30 years.
Yeah.
Children grown up to the mid-20s, settled in their jobs, got their own lives and their own families. Then you move on to another marriage for 30 years, same over again.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go to a third marriage for 20 years, why not? People have done that.
Well, at the age of 60,
but at least
many
that's
people do.
balanced. At least that's balanced. It's responsible. You're not leaving anyone behind. You're like a dodgem car in your relationship, banging into one situation,
Very harsh, that.
bouncing off another, crashing into somebody
It's
else,
called life.
reversing into somebody, breaking their nose on the front of the dodgem car. I mean, you are just the equivalent of a car crash in terms of your relationships and the damage you do to the people which you get involved with.
Well, at least I'm not parked in a cul-de-sac like you, looking at a wall.
Parked
but there
in a
we are.
cul-de-sac.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. Keep those porky book titles coming. By the way, have you seen what's going on at the US Open? Roger Federer
Tell me.
Is looking like he's going to lose the second set to Gael Monfils. He just lost it, actually, to Gael Monfils. 2 sets to love in a US Open quarter-final. By
Who's
the way,
Monfils?
he's a French tennis player. He's the guy in the green shirt.
Yeah, I know who he is up there, but what's his standing in the tennis world? What rank is he?
What rank is he? I don't know. I can't tell off the top of my head. I think he's
20th.
20th.
20th, I've just been
20th
told
seed.
by the man behind the glass.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good. And what's Federer these days? About 8, is he?
No, Federer got quite high up in the rankings because of a couple of the tournaments that he won. I mean, he's in the top 5 at the moment.
Top 5, eh?
But by the way, I saw your tweet just before the Andy Murray game saying that you were absolutely certain that Andy Murray was going to win.
I thought he would.
It was a fantastic game, wasn't it?
It was a fantastic game.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, of course I watched it. Why do you think I was tweeting on it? Do you think I was dreaming it?
No, you tweeted before the game started because the game didn't get underway until about 2:30 in the morning.
No. You're quite wrong.
You want me to check the time of the tweet?
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
I tweeted when it was 1 set each. And by the way, I took I went out to feed the ducks, right? And it was when I came back, they were into the 3rd set, and I said Andy Murray will win this because I felt strongly that he would. Then, unfortunately, he didn't get his serve back when he was 3-1 down.
He messed up the third set.
That was the problem. That was the problem.
So you got another prediction wrong, didn't you?
No, I didn't get a prediction wrong.
You didn't get it wrong.
You see, this is what really disappoints me with you. You are quite happy.
You're quite trippy tonight, aren't you?
No, I'm not. You are quite happy to mumble, load of rubbish and drivel and hope that the audience never remember what you said.
Yeah,
now,
I said that Everton-Arsenal would be 2-2 draw.
And, of course, the audience never remember what you say. Right. They never remember what you say. Now, the audience remember what I say because I'm specific.
Because I remind them.
I put my head above the balcony. No, it's not the balcony, is it?
Put your head in the balcony?
No.
Why don't you just stand on the balcony and throw yourself off?
I put my head above the parapet, right?
The parapet?
The parapet.
Parapet.
And it's there to be shot off, right?
It is.
And that's the risk I take.
Yeah, it looks like it's been shot off as well.
Because I am a risk taker. You're not a risk taker. Do you know what? When I'm on that balustrade with my head above the parapet, right?
It's quite an inventive kind of piece of architecture that she's standing on.
Hang on.
It's got a parapet and a balustrade.
When I'm there with my head above the
parapet. You're on a
stepladder
at this point.
I'm not going to respond to this nonsense. You know where you are? You're slumped at my feet. You're slumped at my feet with a can of lager in one hand.
This is how you see yourself, isn't it?
Hang on.
Like some kind of Roman emperor.
That's right, and a cigarette in the other. No, I see you.
Look into the light. It's getting that time again.
Slumped in the gutter type areas of life. Cigarettes are important to you. Drink is important to you. Avoiding and evading your responsibilities I know what you're laughing at, is important to you, whilst I try to take some measure of responsibility for what's going on in the world around us.
Never has a man been more deluded. We are the Two Mics. This is TalkSport.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He is Mike Parry. Together we are the two Mikes. And, of course, we're playing that song as a bit of a celebration of the sad death of Joan Rivers. She was a comedian. She made an awful lot of people laugh for very, very many years, for decades. 81 years of age. She died in Mount Sinai Hospital and on a life support system after she had a cardiac arrest in New York last week. We're going to talk now to LaDonna Harvey, our very good friend from San Diego, KOGO Radio. LaDonna, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike and Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
now,
hello,
I'm looking at the words of Melissa Rivers, Joan's daughter, who appeared with her in a TV reality show, where she said, "My mother's greatest joy in life was to make people laugh. Although that is difficult to do right now, I know her final wish would be that we return to laughing soon." And when we talk sometimes about people's death, and obviously it's always a sad thing, but in the case of Joan Rivers, she was 81 years old. She'd had a wonderful life, and not all of it had been plain sailing, I suppose. But I'd kind of like to celebrate it more than to mourn it, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, because it's a little bit different. Take the death of Robin Williams. I mean, that was shocking and surprising, and he was still young, and he took his own life. Joan Rivers lived till the age of 81, which is a pretty good run. Even though, I don't think anybody expected anything to happen to her, but everything about her was kind of filled with joy. She managed to find laughter in even the worst situations, like, when her husband committed suicide.
I know, it was a terrible thing. And in fact, just to absolutely endorse the point you've just made, LaDonna, let me read you one of her last self-deprecating jokes. In an hour-long stand-up show recently, she told one of her favourite jokes. She said, "I'm 81. I could go at any moment. I could fall over right here on the stage, and then all you out there could say, 'I was there when Joni went.'" So even then, she was, just weeks ago, months ago, predicting her own demise.
Well, yeah, and after her husband committed suicide, she said that she went out to dinner with her daughter, looked at the menu, and said, "If Daddy were here to see these prices, he'd kill himself all over again." And that was a couple of weeks after his death.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Did she have a tough upbringing? Did this tough upbringing and maybe, I don't know, rejection by men as a young woman forge her into this, steely, hard-nosed woman that she became, delivering acidic one-liners against anybody and everybody?
No, but she did make great hay out of her mother, saying that she had a typical Jewish mother, and that at 21 she was saying you should marry a doctor. At 22, maybe a lawyer. At 24, a plumber. But she was really self-deprecating, and that, I think, was the thing that made her so charming.
And she had a kind of quite an illustrious career in TV and in comedy in general. It was Johnny Carson that kind of introduced her to various talk shows, and she'd worked quite hard to get to the point where she was on television. I mean, it's almost impossible to imagine anyone having that kind of career path nowadays because TV has changed so much, isn't it?
It really has. Consider that when she started, her contemporaries were Woody Allen and Bill Cosby. Yeah. She started doing her routines in the late 1950s. Johnny Carson introduced her to the Tonight Show in 1965. And gosh, for 20 years, that's a long time. She ended up being the regular guest host on the show, and then for a while, the only guest host on the show. And there was a little bit of a strange deal with that as well, because, Carson gave her start, and then she ended up taking a Fox weeknight show called The Late Show starring Joan Rivers, and that was competing directly with him. And he absolutely he shunned her and acted like she had created this, horrible disloyalty by taking this show. And she said, "No, it's just, it's my career."
Yeah, absolutely right. A couple of her great one-liners I'm just looking at here in an obituary. "My face has been tucked in more times than a bedsheet at a Holiday Inn, and my best birth control now is just to leave the lights on." Which I'm sure will resonate with many of us.
It will. But actually, LaDonna, to put it into perspective, I obviously work in a studio with the other Mike. There's two mics here. So I'd like to repeat the line from her, which fits the situation here. "She's so fat, she's my two best friends." I'm directing that to my pal in the studio here. He's so fat, he's my two best friends. Believe me, you've got to see him to believe it.
Well, I can give you one back for that. Looking 50 is great if you're 60. which applies to you.
That's a disgraceful thing to say.
But LaDonna, is Joan Rivers, has she become a controversial figure? Because she's made a few political statements in recent times, hasn't she?
Most particularly about the situation in the Middle East.
About the situation in the Middle East, which have wound quite a few people up on social media. Has that had any effect over there?
Not really. I mean, that is such a polarizing issue. It would not be surprising to find a woman who is a Jewish woman saying that it's the Palestinians' fault. I mean, what about that is surprising? So I don't really think that. And once you've attained the age of 81 and you're still a rapier-sharp comic, I don't think that at that point anybody really you get a pass. Let's just put it that way. You get a pass.
Sure. Tell me this, LaDonna. Was she so revered both in show business circles and, loved by an adoring public that they ignored what I would say, rather unpleasant state of her face in her final years? She did look like the wife of, what was that
Bride
one?
of Wildenstein.
The Bride of Wildenstein, yeah.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I think that she even realized that she had overdone it, and that was a part of her. That was the best part of her humor, was that self-deprecating thing where she could look at herself and realize, oh my God, I've screwed this up and I've really overdone it. And she decided, rather than let somebody say mean stuff about her, she'd say mean stuff about herself. It's the best deflection ever.
Yeah.
And will there be one of those big Hollywood-style funerals at some point in the next few days?
Boy, I don't know, because outside of the public eye, she actually lived a very quiet life. If you, there were a couple of people who were her dear friends who came forward and said, she was not that person in private. She was a much more private person. She was very quiet. She was very ladylike. And so I kind of think that it'll be a little bit of a quiet affair. Now, I could be totally wrong, and you can mock me later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll try not to mock you later, LaDonna.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much indeed. LaDonna Harvey there from KOGO Radio in San Diego. You ever been to San Diego?
Yes, I have been.
Have you?
Yeah, I've been to San Diego. You go over a bridge to get there, don't you?
Yeah,
from
I've
the
not
mainland?
been there, no.
Yeah,
I
you do.
spent some time in California, but I never got that far south.
I drove down from
LA, presumably.
Or was it Frisco? I can't remember where San Diego is. LA is the most southerly main town in California, so it must be between LA and San Francisco, I think. But anyway, you go over this bridge to get in there, and it's spectacular if you like the sea.
Big sailing community,
Oh,
isn't it?
massive. I mean, it's like going to Perth in Western Australia. You see nothing but boats for miles and miles and miles. Right. Very, very, very spectacular. But then, again, most of California is spectacular.
It is indeed.
I saw him once, by the way. Sorry.
Joan Rivers?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was in Venice Beach, which is just down the road from Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I got invited to some business lunch. I don't know whose it was or what it was. Something to do with the radio industry, anyway. And I went there, and they said, oh, yeah, the guest speaker today is Joan Rivers. And I thought, oh, amazing, because, she was a legend even then. And this was going back 10 years.
I imagine when she was doing speeches like off the TV, she was even more cutting and
absolutely fantastic.
And acerbic.
Absolutely fantastic. And when you went up to meet her and greet her, she'd be very, very nice for about the first 90 seconds and then say something so withering about you, call you ugly or short or a dwarf or something like that. Something like that.
She was very charming in the way that she did it, though.
Yeah, how did they let you in here? You got some sort of disability pension or something like that, And,
very un-PC, really.
Yeah, completely un-PC, but an amazingly charismatic woman, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of charisma, Sid from Essex has texted into 81089.
Oh, yeah.
You can, of course, find us on Twitter as well, at the two Mikes and at IROMG and at Mike Parry 8. Sid says, do you think any of Mike's exes, he means you, ever listen to the show and think, that's me he's going on about, you should get them to call into the show or maybe get some of them in the studio? Well, that would be brilliant if we could do that, because I'd like to get the opposite perspective of some of the stuff that you've been doing in your life.
Most of the ladies that I've romanced in the past have gone on to form solid relationships. So I always disguise...
many of them had solid relationships when you were romancing them.
Yeah, it's true, they did. And that's why I disguise the identities of these people. So they'll never be able to recognise themselves, OK?
I don't believe that.
No,
they
won't.
Know.
No, they won't. No, I doubt they'll...
Well, even though they've been out with you, they wouldn't realise that you were describing them.
Well, they might, but what I'm saying is nobody else would. You see what I mean? So it wouldn't be like their partner would think, hang on, That sounds to me like
yeah,
the woman I've just married.
Was creeping about in secret, doing things which you weren't supposed to be doing.
Look, it's not my fault. I went out with a lot of married women as I got older.
Of course it is.
Because they found me incredibly attractive because I was single and I had a
they
good
were
job.
married, though.
Yeah, I know, but they're
Did you
married
not
to...
describe women who commit adultery as having the morals of an alley cat?
No, I've never said that.
Well, why wouldn't you, then?
I never went out with a married woman who had children, right? I drew the line there. Well, I don't think that's right. I think that's right. You know,
so that's not right.
That
it's okay if they don't have children.
Yeah, I think it's
a
okay.
mixed-up personality
I
you
think it's
are.
okay they don't have children because they're married to a guy who's clearly not, keeping them interested in life, which is what life is all about. I believed I was providing a service in a sort of, social worker type capacity. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's helping people to enjoy their life a little bit more. And I would never ever expose the identity of these people for obvious reasons.
And that, I think, in your eyes, makes you a true gent.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
There's a guy who's actually put a picture of you on Twitter saying this is how Mike Parry sees himself in the mirror, and it's a very finely sculpted body of a guy who looks kind of like a bodybuilder. Yeah. That's really how you see yourself, isn't it?
Well, a little bit.
Right. Kent Milky, hang on, he says this, but his book titles for Porky, Porky and the Parapet, Porky and the Brain, or a book from the two of you, Porky and Perky, the two Mikes.
That's very nice. Can you explain to our listeners, please, why you are inviting titles for a book of my life?
Well, because you claim that there's yet another book that you're going to write, which I personally can't wait to read.
I might do.
All the others have been so awful, even though you claim that they sold quite well, which they may well have done.
So awful.
But the prose, let me tell you, the prose is that of a sort of 11-year-old.
Excuse me.
And I think you'll find that the reviews of those books would say the same.
Oh, I see. So the fact that I'm a best-selling author who got into the Sunday Times best-selling list, that indicates that I'm unable to write books properly, does it?
Well, if I was to critique the book, yes, I would say that, unfortunately, the style of your prose, anybody who writes, the sky was as black as ink and the snow was as white as a pot of Dulux paint. I mean,
I didn't write that.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Well, it's your book.
Those are the words of Alan Brazil.
You wrote it.
I wrote them down, but they came out of Alan Brazil's mouth.
I don't believe that.
I'm sorry, but what do you think I did? Do you think I went around inventing things?
Well, that's what you did when you were a reporter.
Rubbish. That's absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
How about this from John in Durham? He says to the Porkmeister, that lady in the tune will soon know that you're shallow because she's bound to be listening to the show. And here's one from Paul in Stirling. He says, a private school near me, we're talking about the subject of private schools, had the shocking statistic that 71% of their pupils that went on to university ended up dropping out. So private schools are not always the best ones. And one final title for your book from Mark in London, who sent this into 81089. The pork is mightier than the sword. A life in letters.
Pork is mightier than the sword. I quite like that.
Not bad. It's not bad. Do you remember that great song, Backstabbers by the OJs?
Backstabber. Yeah, the OJs.
No, it's not like that. It's like you're smiling in your face. Anytime they're going to take your place, the Backstabbers. That one, yeah.
Yeah, well, I said that. Backstabbers is the chorus. Anyway, listen, before we get to that, there's something else I want to discuss with you, which you're trying to evade or avoid.
Not at all.
You told me you were going to get your hair cut before we do our live show tonight.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you gave me the impression you were, because you look like a scruff. Believe me, you look like a down and out, actually.
Really?
In America, we'd call you a bagman.
Well, I think I'm going to wear a suit and show you up.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Why would that show me up?
Because my suits are much better cut than yours, because I have a normal-shaped body and they actually look all right.
How often do you have to get new suits?
How often?
Yeah.
Not very often. Because I don't.
Rubbish, you put on weight at such a rate.
Not at all. No, I don't. Because I don't.
Worst thing you can possibly see in a man is him bursting out of his suit.
There was a time when you and I would wear a suit to work every day, and of course at that time you would tend to get through suits a lot quicker. So I don't buy a couple of new suits every year. Nowadays, I buy. The last time I bought a couple of new suits was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I'll be wearing one of those.
Good God.
And I will
Still wearing clothes from 3 or 4 years ago.
I won't be bursting.
You claim you can get in them. How many times do you have to have them altered?
I don't ever get them
Rubbish.
altered.
Anyway, I'm not talking about your suits.
My weight does not balloon up and down at all.
Don't you think, for a man of your age, you look ridiculous with that hippie hairstyle?
No.
And you're being told by the management here at TalkSport all the time that it'd be a good idea if you got it cut. You know that, don't you?
I'm not interested in what the management at TalkSport want to say about my hair.
Well, you should be.
They don't pay me to come in here with a short back and sides.
They have a handle on your future,
They've
pal.
never said
And
that
if
to
I were
me.
you, I would take that sort of advice very seriously.
No one from senior management at TalkSport has ever mentioned my hair.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, they have to me.
Well, they might have to you, but not to me.
Yeah, well...
And I'm sure if they wish to make a complaint about the
you don't
length
have
of my
any
hair,
awareness about you. I'm aware of everything.
I'll tell you a weird thing that happened to me, actually. I had a terrible day yesterday trying to get into work because the train service that I use, as you well know, is not very good. And
where does it come from?
Well, it comes from Hastings, is the end of the line, and it's South East Railways.
No,
and,
which station do you get on?
I get on at Battle. Right,
Battle,
which is about an hour and 10 minutes away. I decided that a good idea would be for me to, because my daughter had arrived from America, and I'd taken her down to Sussex to see the kids and all that.
She's coming to see our show tonight.
She is. She's
Emma.
well, not only is she going to come to see it,
she's going to be the usher.
She's going to be the usher. She's going to be the announcer as well. She's going to be
Usher,
part of the whole
announcer,
thing.
And video.
We might have to pay her.
Photographer.
Actually. Might have to pay her.
Well, you might
do
have
that.
to pay her.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
But anyway, so here's
do
the
you
thing.
expect me to contribute to keeping your daughter?
Yeah, because it's our show. So therefore, the payment would have to come from the pot.
I see. And who invited her onto the payroll?
I did.
How do you expect me to pay for it?
You see, once again, the true nature of the Portmeister is revealed. Now, here's the thing. So I thought, well, I'll get the 807 train
while she's over here because she's staying in a flat, isn't she, for a bit?
Very kind of you. Thanks very much for the offer.
I'll give her a food check and all that kind of stuff.
Not?
Right?
Why not indeed? Now, let me just get back to the point of the story, if I may.
What was it?
It was that I thought, the show starts. I thought I'll get into the work around about midnight. So I thought I'll get the 807 train from Battle, and that'll be great.
And how do you get to Battle Station?
Well, normally I would get a lift in the car, you see, and so we went.
And how long does that take?
It's only about 10 minutes away.
10 minutes.
Not even. It's actually do it in about 4 minutes if you drive fast. It's very quick.
4 minutes.
It's about a 10 or 15 minute walk. So I went to get in the car to drive it, and the battery was dead. Can you believe it? The battery, and I mean, I can't remember the last time I got in a car and the battery was dead.
Why was the battery dead?
And the reason the battery was dead was because I'd got out of the car and I'd left the key in the ignition. Now, I had no idea that if you leave the key in the ignition of a Land Rover, it wears down the battery.
Pretty silly to leave a key in the ignition of any motor anywhere in the world.
It is, but it was one of those situations
where... itinerant comes along, sees a Jeep, thinks, I wonder if the key's in... Oh, I'm away.
Well, yeah, but where my house is, though, I mean, it's at the end of a private road. There's nobody there. It's not as if anybody's going to steal the car.
You never know. People lurk around all over the place.
No, nobody lurks around where I am because the dog will scare them away. But, I mean, and also it was one of those kind of slightly confused pieces of arrival because I sort of arrived and everybody jumped out of the car and the dog was there and the other kids were jumping around. So it was a bit of a chaotic...
When you took Emma home, then?
Yeah, it was a bit of a chaotic scene.
Yeah.
And in fact, what had happened, she'd left her back window open. So as I got out of the car, I realised that I had to go back, put the key in the ignition, close the back window, because it's electric. And I've absent-mindedly left it in there. Felt stupid about it later.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought, well, I'll walk to the station. And because it was dark and, we'd been sort of celebrating all afternoon, I was sort of staggering about through the undergrowth trying to get to the train.
You were heading for work inebriated, is
No,
what you're saying?
not at all. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, why are you staggering about? Have you got an uneven floor in your lounge or something?
Well, yeah. Well, no, I'm talking about the road to the I'm walking through fields to get to the station. That's what I have to do.
You go cross country, do you?
Yeah, I'm living in the country. So
how long does this walk take across the fields?
It's about 10 or 12 minutes.
That's not bad.
It's good, yeah. And but it's dark, it's pitch black. So I've got the light on my phone. So I get to the station feeling quite as if I've made quite an achievement. Get there only to discover that the train has been cancelled, and there's only one train an hour.
It's not good.
So this is now, of course, the 907 by now.
Terrible planning ahead of coming to work.
This is now 907, and I'm thinking, and there's a guy on the station platform.
Unreliability.
A guy on the station platform who says to me, he said they did this last week, then the 1007 was cancelled as well. And of course, there's nobody on the station platform to talk to. The ticket office is shut. Right. There's no way because there's no 3G there's no way of checking the internet.
Is there a phone you can pick up and talk to somebody?
No, absolutely not.
Is there a board with the electronic
the electronic sign said that the train's been cancelled.
Right.
The next train is at 10:07.
Right. So what did you do for an hour?
All of which was fine. Well, most of it, I tried to get to find a taxi. I called our producer and said, "Look, there's a problem here. If the 10:07 is cancelled, I'm not getting to work.
Yeah.
And I can't drive my car because it's dead.
Right.
And can you see if you can find me a taxi?
Right.
And do you know he could not find a taxi driver in Sussex for half an hour. Everybody he called said, "Oh no, mate, we can't drive you to London."
Yeah,
I mean,
even though you're willing to pay up front.
Oh, yeah, 120 quid it was going to cost, and I would have done that.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do it because this is what we have in this country. We have people who don't want to take money. They don't want to. They don't want to do their job. I find that extraordinary.
I think you must have a reputation down there.
Not at all.
Nights when you've had far too much to drink and they've had to pick you up in pubs and restaurants and all that kind of stuff.
I don't really
word must have got around.
I don't really go out much down there.
I think word must have got around, Mike, because I don't know any driver, I don't know any cab driver who would turn down a £120 fare, because for them, then their night's over. They've got their dosh, it's in the pocket, one run up to London, whoopee, they're in the life.
Well, that's what I would have thought.
Get your glad rags on, we're going out to a late club because I've just had some guy in a car's give me 120 quid. Yeah, I can see it now.
Well, that's what I would have thought.
But they didn't want to take you. Seriously, didn't want to take you.
He finally found somebody.
I bet you're on a blacklist. I bet there's a blacklist of bad passengers in the Sussex area, and I bet you're on it. No, you must be. There's no other reason why they'd turn you down, seriously.
Not true. Anyway, the point of my story is...
Yeah, what is the point of your story? Let's get to it.
Roger Federer's just won the third set, by the way.
Oh, right.
So it's now into the fourth set, so it's going to be quite exciting. Go on one feet.
Wow, that's interesting. Sorry, Federer's just won the third set, and now they're going to the fourth set.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know.
Well, I know you don't understand tennis very well.
I didn't know the tennis worked that way.
I know.
Yeah,
well, there's a lot of things you don't know. Anyway, this is with regard to my hair that you keep obsessing about.
Yeah.
As a result of my late arrival, I had to pop into Sainsbury's to buy a couple of things, and there's a 24-hour Sainsbury's just around the corner. Some cigarettes, actually. Because I was out of cigarettes.
Part of the £100 cigarette bill a week.
Yeah. Well,
why did you stress out because your train wasn't there and smoke 6 on the platform before you got on the train?
Well, you said to me, "What did you do for an hour?"
Yeah.
What do you think I did for an hour? I was storming about and I was smoking and I was on the phone.
You're not allowed to smoke on platforms.
I wasn't on the platform. I was at the outside part of the station.
That's what I'm saying. You have to make sure you go at the platform outside the
Well,
station again. So you're the sort of guy, leaves all these filthy butts just outside the gates of the station.
I always put them somewhere.
Which lie around and make us look like a dishevelled country.
No, I put them in a plant pot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, whose plant pot?
The station plant pot.
Disgusting.
Anyway, I'm standing in Sainsbury's. I don't know if you've ever been to a
tree.
24-hour Sainsbury's at midnight. I'll tell you what, it is the most appalling scene you've ever seen.
And where was the Sainsbury's?
Just outside Waterloo Station.
Right, one opposite. Yeah, I know.
Full of complete and utter inebriated people, right? Some of whom were happy, some of whom were sad, some of whom were mad. There was two guys standing behind me in the line.
Yeah.
And it was quite busy.
Down and outs?
Not down and outs, just very drunk.
Right.
I'd already witnessed them dropping a bottle of beer in the aisle, which had smashed on the floor. I mean, that's how drunk they were, right? And as I was standing there, I felt one of them tug at the back of my hair.
No.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
The first time they did it, I just ignored it.
Right.
Because I thought, there's nothing to be gained here.
Yeah.
Then they did it again.
Right.
So I turned around and I heard this woman laughing, and she was one behind them.
Right.
And I just looked at her and I went, your arms aren't that long, are they? You couldn't have done that. And then these two guys who were literally so drunk they could barely see me were sort of looking at me. And I just looked at one of them. I said, do you like my hair? And one of them went, yeah, I like your hair.
Yeah.
Are you going to move on because, we want to pay?
Yeah.
And I said, well, there's a queue here, and I could see, well, this could get a bit difficult, this situation.
Well, two of them, one of you.
Yeah, but they were just very leery and drunk.
Yeah,
and clutching, six-pack of beer.
If you'd have punched them once, you'd have knocked them out.
Yeah, probably. But I didn't want to punch people in Sainsbury's. I wanted to get to work.
No, I totally agree. It's a last resort.
So all I said to them was, I said, well, look, if you want to do I said, I can't do self-service because I go at cigarettes. So if you want to go and do self-service, if you think you can manage it in your state, then off you go and do it. And one of them kind of thought about answering me back and looked at me sort of vaguely menacingly. But I thought to myself, imagine having to work in a place like that and seeing this every single night.
Yeah, exactly.
Where what is wrong with people in this country that they can't actually go out and have a nice time
without
causing trouble, without being drunk and disorderly?
Of course.
Shocking.
The problem is you caused the problem in the first place.
Well, by having long hair.
Absolutely.
That is ludicrous.
Absolutely. By having unnaturally long hair, which caused a talking point in a busy supermarket because it's so extraordinarily long for a man of your age. That's the problem.
So you're condoning somebody pulling my hair?
I'm not. What I'm saying is, mate, you invited trouble onto yourself, and I told you to get it done, and I'm sorry, and no sympathy, no sympathy at all. And in fact, you caused a social problem there, and it's your fault.
Really?
Yeah.
Here's one from Scott in Liverpool. He says, how about this one from Mike Parry's book, Sex, Lies and Dulux Paint? And he says, great show, fellas. This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes. I'm Mike Graham. He's Mike Parry. Lots more suggestions coming in for book titles. Gary, the Spurs fan from Finchley, says, how about this? Mike the Parry. And apparently Parry means a chatter robot that tries to imitate intelligent conversation. I've never heard of that.
No, I've never heard of that. The only other interpretation of Paris, well, there's two others. Paris, which is the capital of France.
Of course.
And it used to be called Gay Paris.
It did.
And I got stuck with that for a long time.
Did you? When you were at school?
Yeah, when I was at school. Oh, it's all Gay Paris. Hey,
there's nothing like schoolboy humour.
Absolutely, to be cruel and cutting.
Do you know, I found a Parry Road actually, and there's quite a few of them, but I found one. I meant to tell you this, but we went to Crystal Palace, and I ended up on that long walk to those guys' cars.
You told me that. Yeah,
there was a road called Parry Road down there.
Ridiculous.
It's around the corner from Selhurst Park.
It's a Welsh name, although I'm English. And the other parry, of course, is to parry a blow. You know
parry
what I mean?
a blow, yes.
Parry a blow. Like karate style. Ooh.
Like Parry's now making karate style.
Yeah, that's right. And then
moves.
I parries. If you see what I mean.
Well, I might check this out. This Parry being a chatter robot, and another one from Dave, who's a Walsall fan from Staffordshire, says Porkies, no likey, no Mikey. Anyway,
no likey, no Mikey.
Yeah, that's quite good.
Now
we're going to talk to another guest here because it's an interesting story from America where basically some soccer mums over there, or soccer moms as they're called, are suing FIFA over concussion from headers. What they're saying is that it's dangerous for young people to head the ball too many times.
Yep.
And what they want to do is to get FIFA to put some regulations in so that basically there's a limit on the number of times a boy or a girl playing in a soccer game in America could actually head the ball. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we're going to talk to Lynn Thompson.
I don't think they, to get this right, Mike, I don't think they are suing FIFA. I think they're trying to make a case to ask for a review of the damage that heading the ball might cause.
They filed a lawsuit in California against FIFA, according to my information.
Have they? I wasn't aware of that.
Well,
I heard about it, talking to our mate over there, was that they want to see if FIFA will accept that there's evidence now for a review of the damage heading a ball. Anyway, we'll find out from Lynn.
We'll talk
Thompson.
to Lynn Thompson. She's author of the official Soccer Mom devotional. Lynn, a very good morning to you. Good evening to you there, I guess.
Yes, good evening, good morning. How are you today?
Now, it's interesting that the word soccer mom has become part of the lexicon, even in this country. It's the image of the woman with the big 4x4 car and the kids that play football every day or every Friday or Saturday, and it's a kind of stereotype, I suppose. But this is quite a serious matter, this, isn't it?
It is. When you have neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons basically stating that they are concerned about the well-being of young children, and especially, it's such a developmental time, physically, we have to take notice and we have to say, you know what, we probably need to protect the kids at this point. And, not every child is going to go on to be the soccer star that we think they are. They probably are going to need to go on and use their brains. And so we want to try to protect those little brains and let them finish the developmental process so that they can, live healthy, productive lives.
I accept all that, Lynn, that, you've got to be very concerned about your children's health and all that. But to be quite frank, if there was any curtailing of the allowance to head a ball in soccer, as you call it, football as we call it, it would completely destroy the game. It's an inherent part of the game. 1/3 of all the goals, it's about 1/4 of all goals scored in world football are scored by the head. It's an integral part of the game. It involves terrific skill. It involves the skill of a man crossing a ball for another man to, or girl, depending who's playing it, to leap up and head the ball. And I just don't see how soccer could survive without the, very, very necessary skill to head a ball.
Well, no, I do agree with that too, but we're talking about young children. We're wanting to protect young children until they have finished their development, their physical development. And, once they're older, then they can start pursuing those skills. To be honest with you, when I've been on the soccer field with a bunch of, my son played soccer, and when I was on the field and looking and watching them, there wasn't a whole lot of headbutting going on. They really hadn't reached that skill level at that point. I didn't really see them reaching that skill level effectively until they were in high school anyway. So really, it's not going to affect the way the game is played at a younger age. But, when you get to the older ages and, the brain has finished developing, the neck is firm and has the muscle capacity to, hold the head properly, then, yeah, I could see that being fine. But we need to protect the young children, especially during the developmental process.
And also, I think I'm right in saying that there is this lawsuit that's been launched in California. And what is it that these parents want? Do they want there to be some kind of limit or a ban, if you like, put in so that children can't head the ball?
Yeah, I think so. I think so because of the regulations, just the regulations that are in. They want that to be off the table, where that's not encouraged, that's not allowed during the games at the younger age level. So I think that's what they're looking for is, especially I know there's been some cases in Pennsylvania and Connecticut as well, where schools have actually finally said, and also youth soccer associations have said, you know what, we're just going to take that off the table. There's no longer any, using the head to be able to manipulate the ball. We're not going to do that until the high school level. And I think that was wisdom. I really do.
You may or may not be aware, Lynn, there's an ongoing case in England involving a footballer called Jeff Astle. And Jeff Astle was a very prominent international footballer in this country. He scored the winning goal in our biggest game, the FA Cup final. And he died a few decades later, but to this day his family are campaigning to ask the FA to investigate the circumstances of his death, because he died with one of the debilitating diseases, Alzheimer's or something like that. And they say that was because of the damage caused to his head by a ball. Now, what worries me is, with your campaign out there about youngsters heading the ball, this will inevitably give fuel to the fire that actually heading the ball, even by adults eventually, will be outlawed.
Well, I don't know that I would make that correlation at this point. I think the jury is still out on deciding how they're going to handle it at the professional level. That's a different decision in my mind. When a person has decided to pursue that career, there are risks with every career. I mean, you have seen American football, and that's pretty, that's pretty aggressive. And, you'll hear the same thing. We hear that all the time. Oh, he died of some brain injury. Maybe it was because he played, NFL football, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually.
Yeah, I think the jury's still out. I think there's just not enough information yet to even make that. But I think there is, because children are developing. I think that's a different, decision altogether. You're just trying to say, you know what, let's let the kids finish growing up and let their bodies become adult bodies and then go from there. I think protecting the children is not a bad decision.
But the interesting thing is, and Mike and I are not quite of a similar age. He's about 10 years older than me.
No, that's absolute rubbish. We're of a very similar age.
That's why he's so sensitive.
We're of a very similar age, honestly. Don't even worry about this. This guy's misinforming you.
Right. When I was growing up, certainly,
which was a long time ago.
We used to play football with a very heavy leather ball, which had laces in it. And, when we would play football on a cold, winter's day on the school playing fields, and if you got hit by the ball on the thigh, it was a pain that stayed with you forever. And if you headed it, I mean, it was so heavy, this ball, that it would kind of jar your neck. And I mean, obviously now the technology of footballs in general now is they're much lighter, they're much less likely to damage anyone, I suppose. I mean, could they play with a lighter ball? Perhaps would that be some kind of compromise?
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, yeah, it could be. I think the idea, though, that we can help them develop some skills as far as maneuvering the ball with their feet. I think it's important that the football in your country, soccer ball in ours, I think it remains pretty much standard, pretty much an official ball, just because they get the use of doing the footwork. And, yes, when you play professional, you end up doing a lot of headbutting, but you must admit that the footwork is crucial to the success of the game. And if you can safely teach younger children how to manipulate that ball, I think that's a good thing. So to me, keeping it regulation, weight and size while you're teaching them to, maneuver the ball and doing their footwork, I think that's a good idea.
Lynn, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us.
One thing that Lynn's missed there, and it comes from the point you've just made, you only damage yourself and get a headache when you're heading the ball if you head it wrongly.
Yeah.
If you head it rightly, if you head it on your forehead, which is the strongest point of your head when your neck muscles bring your head forward, you don't damage your brain at all.
But to be fair, that's a technique that you have to learn.
Well, of course you have.
Not all young kids are going to be able to learn that straight off, are they?
Do you know what? Lynn made a point very early on in her delivery to us, which almost sort of killed her argument altogether. You see very, very little heading of the ball amongst kids aged about 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
The ball just doesn't get off the ground for them to be able to head it.
Yeah.
And they can't get off the ground to meet the ball in the air. So I think this is a nonsensical pursuit, but it can, allow the old do-gooders who'd like to, get involved in everything, ban fishing, ban whatever they want to ban.
E-cigarettes.
Ban e-cigarettes. They want to ban something, Once they ban fox hunting, then ban fishing, then ban everything else. It's the banners that worry me.
Yeah, well, it's the time that worries me because you need to look into the light again. This is Talk Sport.
Look into the light.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Porky Parry is here. You've noticed something on the internal television screen.
I'm sorry, I know we're doing a paper review and we've got Ben in, but on one of our internal screens, one of the most serious issues which is confronting the world at the moment, of course, is the ISIS situation, Islamic State, and the rampage across the Middle East. And from Washington, D.C., the American government seems to have a bloke here as a spokesman for it who is a dead ringer for Les Battersby from Coronation Street, isn't he? Isn't he?
I don't think he's he's the executive director of the International Project on Terrorism. He's nothing to do with the government.
He looks like Les Battersby, doesn't he? And he's talking about, one of the critical issues affecting the world. And
you look like Captain Birdseye. Doesn't it stop you talking about the back pages?
Don't go off the tangent. The idea of Les Battersby, addressing a situation like this just amused me, actually, because Les Battersby ran off with status quo, didn't he, in the end, in Coronation Street?
I don't know how his mind works, Ben. Should we have a look at what's going on the back pages?
How have we reached there? I was just going to say it was nice to hear the Jam being a woken boy, but there we go.
Absolutely.
Well, on the back, good morning, gentlemen, by the way. The big story on a lot of the papers this morning is Roy Hodgson losing his temper.
I think this is very bad form.
It's bad form, but also I think I think he's dropped one here, hasn't he? As it were, he's uncharacteristically got angry and sworn. And he's questioned the press. He said, well, how can you say we had no shots on target? How can you say we only had 2 shots on target? What about all the blocked shots? What about this? What about that? I think he realises that he's under a bit of pressure now.
Well,
because if England don't beat Switzerland,
or he's showing that he's actually feeling the pressure.
Yeah, showing that he's feeling the pressure, more to the point. Because
I think it's both, isn't it?
I get so sick of people saying, well, if Roy Hodgson was to go, who would you get in? So what people are saying is they'd rather keep Roy Hodgson where he is because there's no one else that could possibly do the job better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ludicrous.
I think Tim Sherwood would do a job for England, and I'm not joking. And you say he hasn't got enough experience and all that.
But Sherwood made a fool of himself on the touchline at Spurs, didn't he?
No, he didn't. No, not in my view.
Your mate Steve.
Tim Sherwood, to me, shows that he's completely in touch, both mentally and in terms of, physical expectancy with footballers today, in a way that Roy Hodgson simply isn't. Roy Hodgson's a pensioner now, isn't he? Isn't he 65?
Well, there's a worry that he's what you call a blazer, and he's
how
got that perception.
How does he relate to John Stones and Raheem Sterling, who are 20 and 19?
Raheem Sterling.
Raheem Sterling, sorry. Raheem Sterling. How does he relate to... All right. Sorry, there's a lot of words coming out of my mouth.
Raheem stealing into the box.
One of them gets mangled.
Stealing a goal.
Yeah.
But, I think the problem is, Mike, or Mike's, I should say, for ease.
Well, it's all right, you can address me, because I know more about it than he does.
Well, in due course, we'll see. Roy Hodgson had his chance at the 2014 World Cup. It was his team. It was his campaign.
Sorry,
and he blew it.
Unbelievable.
And he blew it.
Supposed to be examining the papers, not having, schoolboy-like
altercations.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for your next observation on the internal screen to see what they come up with next.
Oh, please don't. Roy of the Ravers, and Roy Hodgson finds himself, this was supposed to be the Norway game, was supposed to be the game that endeared the English football team back with the public, the paying public, and of course Wembley was only half full. And now we find England are going to get Switzerland. He said that his side are going to be less attacking, and this is the most, arguably,
How can he
the
be
most
any less
difficult game
attacking
of the group.
than 2 shots on goal?
Well, exactly. Well, be careful, because he'll get angry with you if you say that.
Yeah.
There were more than 2 shots.
And also, what Roy Hodgson forgets, by the way, is that he is a servant of not only the FA, but of the England fans.
Yeah, £4 million a year, sir.
He's effectively a civil servant.
He is.
Effectively. And I think he needs to remember that. I like Roy Hodgson. I think he's a nice guy and all the rest of it. But that's not enough.
I don't like
that's
his
not
waffle.
enough to keep him in the job.
I totally agree. I don't like his waffle. And by the way...
Waffle?
Yeah, his
You mean
waffle.
waffle?
His waffle. Well, look, I mean, what is it? What is it? Do you have to pick me up on every single syllable
Listen,
I utter?
if I picked you up on everything, we'd never get to the end of the show.
Let me address Ben. Ben, point is that from the moment he opened his mouth again for the first time since the debacle of the 2014 campaign in Brazil, he has been ultra defensive.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't got a lot of good players. We are very low. Well, we've got to put it all behind us. Yeah, we've got to get on with the future. Almost apologising for being in the job, really, and almost to his employers, the Football Association, a non-profit-making organisation who pay him about $4 million a year. Thanks very much for keeping me in work.
They'd make a profit. They didn't have to pay him so much money, wouldn't they?
Well, they don't. They plough it all back into football. That's the very point
but
of
I'm
the
saying
story.
if they didn't pay the manager quite so much money, they might actually make some.
But I take your point, Ben. Absolutely. Oh well, we've got to keep him in the job. He's hopeless, but we haven't got anybody else to do it. I could think of half a dozen people who could do that job.
Tony Pulis is unemployed.
Tony Pulis is unemployed now, but he's Welsh. But I mean, does that matter?
Well, Brendan Rodgers is being sent for the job, and he's Northern Irish.
I think they should have a policy of employing one manager for one tournament period, and if it doesn't work, they get rid of him and then bring somebody else. We should have a new manager for the Euros, and if and people will say, "Oh, well, Tony Pulis might not work," or Tim Sherwood. I'd be willing to give anybody
a rolling contract.
Imagine it was like an election,
and you set an absolute target and say, for the Euros, you must make the quarterfinals. If you don't, we're not keeping you on. If you do, you can do the World Cup.
Maybe it followed like a general election sort of format, you know, where like every 4 years, when you could stand for it, Porky, couldn't you?
Well, I mean, I know you mean that in jest.
They won't have him back at the
I don't mean it in jest. You can't do any worse than Hodgson did.
Well, I'm telling you, there would be a role there to introduce some sort of what I would call straightforward thinking, because there's no straightforward thinking going on there. If the players who are 19 and 20 can't understand the wishes of the manager, and all they do is pass the ball sideways, for about 40 of the 45 minutes of the first half, then obviously you're not going to get anywhere, are you? And by the way, it's crisis time for Wayne Rooney as well. Wayne Rooney's in charge of a debilitated England team and a failing Manchester United team. He's got the worst possible deal in terms of taking the captain's armband. What is Roy Hodgson doing about that? Putting far too much responsibility on Rooney, as Rooney has got a magic wand which he can, start waving around and change England's fortunes.
Well, that's quite a nice segue, actually, to the back of the Times.
Well, there you go. See, I like giving you segues.
It could be a radio magic.
I thought a segue was one of those things that you sort of rolled along pavements on and fell off. If your name's Piers Morgan, and crack all your ribs.
Yeah, and George Bush fell off his as well, didn't he?
He did, didn't he? Yeah.
I forgot about that. That was
I'd like to see you riding on one of those. But you see people riding on them. I saw one. They had when I was in Turkey. They had a kind of a bike version of a Segway, which I've never seen before. The Segway's got those kind of black wheels.
Yeah.
This was actually like a bicycle wheeled sort of
an electric bike,
and they were using it to go around the grounds of the hotel. Yeah.
But what's the point? Just walk or roller skate.
Well, in the hot weather, I can see the point, because if you were in Turkey and it was 100 degrees and you had to get from one end of the compound to the other, and you can't drive a car, you go on one of these.
I mean, I've seen them in Albufeira Old Town in Portugal, and you just see kids, and they're going around so slowly. And what's the point? There's an escalator, an outdoor escalator. That's more fun, surely. But anyway,
I've never seen one in this country.
Have you ever seen an outdoor escalator?
No, I've never seen a Segway in this country.
Oh, okay. Well, have you ever seen an outdoor escalator?
Have you ever seen a Segway on an outdoor escalator?
No, of course not.
That's something. I've never seen an outdoor escalator. What do they do when it rains? How does that work?
I've seen an
just
outdoor
asking.
escalator
just don't go on it.
I know the senior producer Steve Morgan listens to this part of the show.
There's an outside escalator at the Shard, actually, just outside the Shard, going up to London Bridge Station.
Is that? Oh yeah, so there is.
Yeah.
I've seen one somewhere. I think it must be at an airport somewhere. Is there an airport?
Outside? Yeah, I think there's a couple of
that narrows it down.
Escalators.
Sorry,
that narrows it down.
Well,
an airport somewhere.
Well, look, not every city's got an airport, has it? You know what I mean?
That's true. It's very touchy tonight.
No, I'm not.
Let's look at a couple of... How about this one on the back? You were saying on the back of the page of the Times.
Well, it was very, very nearly a good segue, but you say Wayne Rooney's captain at Manchester United at a time when it's difficult, but actually Van Gaal, or as Mike Perry puts it, Van Gaal...
No, Van Gaal.
Van Gaal, I beg your pardon.
Gaal
has been given the green light to keep on spending. So
they are James Ducker.
Exactly, the Northern football correspondent in the Times. Now, United are basically just chucking money at finishing fourth, aren't they? That is, if they don't finish... What happens if they spend all this money and they don't finish fourth? What's that going to mean?
That is what's going to happen.
But I agree, and I don't think they're going to finish in the top four for 2-3 years, despite Angel Di Maria, despite Daley Blind and all the rest of them. I just can't see it. I really cannot see it. So they're going to keep spending money.
Yeah. So where does it stop?
Well, when does it stop? What if they're 7th? The 31st of January or the 1st of February, whenever the transfer window falls in the winter. What's going to happen then?
Interestingly enough, it does also give the argument, sort of rubbishes the argument rather, that you can buy the Premier League title, because I mean, if they don't win the Premier League title, having spent 200 million quid. Then you can't buy it.
Well, Manchester City couldn't buy it first time round, first couple of seasons around. You can't, in my view, you cannot go around the world buying a load of disparate players who may all be very good individually and weld them into a team immediately and tell them all to play together to a particular system.
And there's a real misconception that Chelsea bought the Premier League, right? Yeah. And I don't buy that one bit, because they just so happen to have who I think is one of the best coaches in the world in Jose Mourinho. He made the right signings. And they went on and did it. And people get really touchy about that and really quite jealous.
He inherited quite a good team, and he put the finishing touches to it, 1 or 2 very shrewd buys, which is exactly what he's done this time.
Exactly.
Exactly what he's done this time.
City dwarfed Chelsea in their riches. It took them years to do it. When they did do it, it was only a 90th minute goal that got them over the line. Last season, they were uninspiring. You can't buy the Premier League. Nice segue into Manchester City, back page of the Sun. Frank Lampard. He says he loved 13 great years at Chelsea. Now he's committed to Man City.
Well, that's exactly the right attitude.
No, I agree.
It is, but I just feel a bit uncomfortable about it. Maybe it's my Chelsea affectations, but I'm not looking forward to seeing him in a City shirt. Sorry.
I think you have to get over it. He's gone.
Of course he has. And his wages are now being paid by a new employer. He owes all his loyalty to that employer. He owes all his loyalty to those fans of the team whose shirt he wears. And tough luck on Chelsea. If they didn't want him, somebody else did. They may yet regret that decision.
Are you actually talking to Ben, or just generally to anyone who's
and
listening?
You live with them. You've got to live with your decisions. In life, you make your decisions, you live with them. You start whinging and moaning about them, you're a non-person.
My decision is to go to a break.
Good idea.
This is Talk Sport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two mics. I'm sure, Mr. Parry, you will recognise that song.
Everything You Do Is Magic by Sting.
Yeah, well, the Police, actually.
That's right, the Police. And during my first incarnation in the Americas in the mid-'80s, around about 82 to about 87 or 88, they were right at the top of the tree. I used to wake up some mornings to the sounds of every move you make, every breath you take.
Yeah, it was a bit like that, yeah.
Yeah, well,
every breath you take.
Every breath you take.
That was later on, yeah.
And do you remember
that when I was at university and I was involved in the entertainment section?
The entertainment section?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Well,
what, were you a clown without even realising it?
No, if you'd been involved in... If you'd ever been to university, you would know that the Ents section of
University of the Trent.
Yeah, well, you would have known that entertainment does not mean that you get up on stage. It means that you book acts.
Oh,
right?
really?
It was called the Ents department, OK? And we booked the police.
Ents, what's that short for? Entertainment.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, well
and who
done.
did you book? Coco the Clown?
We booked the police for 50 quid.
Yeah,
we booked the police for 50 quid.
50 quid for
yeah,
the police.
seriously. Because they weren't...
And did you meet them?
Yeah, I met them. Because they were on tour with a band called Albertos y los Trios Paranoias, who were what was called a snuff rock band at the time.
Were they like a Spanish guitar band or something?
No, they were just like a punk band that had this ridiculous Spanish name. And the
they weren't Spanish, though?
No, and the police were their support group on their tour.
What year was this?
The police hadn't made it big yet. It must have been around about 1977, 78. It was before they made it big.
Right, okay.
And literally by the time...
So do you actually remember meeting Sting and shaking his hand and all that?
Yeah.
His name was Gordon Sumner in those days, wasn't it?
We didn't really shake hands. We just kind of were like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, all right, man. Yeah.
Hey,
man, you getting down, man.
And so, anyway, I just wanted to say, but by the time they came to play...
gear, man.
By the time they came to play, they'd become like the number one act in the country. So it was a great coup. 50 quid, can you imagine that?
Yeah. So, sorry, you booked them months in advance, and in between time they had a hit record.
Yeah.
But
we'd already signed a contract, so they got 50 quid. Anyway,
amazing, that.
You're just trying to put off the inevitable, which is, once again, you failing to prove that you're an expert in the world of painting, because there's been a big dispute going on in recent days about Constable and Turner.
No dispute at all, in my view.
As you say, two of the great painters of this country. So in order to prove what you know about Constable and Turner, we have devised a little quiz for you. So I'd like you to know that there are no multiple choice questions.
But we're not doing that now.
We are doing that now.
I thought you told me we won't do that till after 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
I'm not properly prepared.
We've changed it around a bit.
Well, you see, once again, you've dropped this on me. I need a bit of intense...
You were given half an hour's notice, according to the producer.
Well, I need...
And also, it was on Twitter that you were doing a Constable quiz.
You've cheated.
What do you mean you haven't got your cheating papers to hand? You've already admitted on the show earlier on tonight that you cheated in shorthand exam. So you know the die has now been cast.
I don't. Well, that was a long time ago.
All right, never mind that. Let's just get to the questions, okay? They are not multiple choice, okay? Right. So there is a simple answer. Number one: where is Constable Country?
Constable Country is Dedham Vale, which is on the border of Essex and Suffolk, and includes East Bergholt, which is the village in which John Constable was born.
You must be reading that.
I'm not reading it.
You must be.
I'm not reading it.
How can you possibly know all that?
Because I've been there and I own a property there, so I'm immersed.
I may have to ask the producer to come in and make sure you haven't got any aids there.
I haven't.
With you.
I'm immersed in the local culture.
Okay. Number two. What does John Constable have in common with me?
What does John Constable? Well, he wasn't a fat get, so that's not it. He was rather a slight man. His father was a mill owner, and your father was a bit of a Scottish nutter, so there's nothing...
There's a question about his father later, actually.
Right, OK. Let me see.
I have to hurry you because...
What's your middle name?
I don't have one.
Right, so Michael, he wasn't called Michael. No, he's called John, obviously. And, well, this is too broad. It's too broad a question. Right. It's a ridiculously broad question.
Well,
I mean, you could
know
say,
enough about me.
I've only got 6 toes on my left foot or something.
Well, no, he's from Suffolk. I'm not. He died in Hampstead, where I was born. And you should have known that, because if you know where he died...
Well, what a ridiculous question. I'm not accepting that as a question.
You got it wrong.
No, Mike, that is utterly stupid. You might as well have said, he once drank in a bar in London, like me.
He died in Hampstead because he lived there.
Utter garbage.
Number 3, what was the occupation of Constable's father?
He was a mill owner.
Wrong.
No.
He was a wealthy corn merchant.
And a mill owner. He owned 2 mills. No, I'm sorry. That is now. I'm not going any further in this quiz because that is completely inaccurate. He was a corn merchant who owned 2 mills. Where do you think he got his corn from? Do you think he got his corn from a field? Do you think he went out with a reaper and went and cut a bit of corn down, flogged it?
Really are getting carried away
in a market somewhere in Ipswich.
All right, I'll tell you what. We'll come back to that. We'll find. We'll get the producer to check that out.
Right.
Number 4. Which famous cathedral did he immortalise in 1823 and once again in 1831?
Salisbury.
Correct.
Go.
Number 5.
Yep.
What is generally regarded as his most famous painting, which is in the National Gallery? It was painted in 1821.
It could be one of 3. It could be the Haywain.
The correct...
Right. Thank you.
So far, you've actually not
got everything right.
No, you haven't got everything right.
I have got everything right because you asked me a bum question, which I'm not accepting. Right?
I'm being told by the producer that he was a mill owner.
Thank you.
So does that mean so far you got 5 out of 5?
See? Trying to catch me out.
Oh, sorry, you didn't get the Hampstead one. I got 4 out of 5.
Bum question. That was a bum question.
4 out of 5. Number 6. Who played Constable Kevin Goody in the fictional comedy series The Thin Blue Line?
What a stupid question.
What's
that got to do with Constable the painter?
Yes, well, I don't set these questions.
Constable Kevin Goody in The Thin Blue Line.
Do you remember The Thin Blue Line?
Of course I remember The Thin Blue Line. Now, old Rubberface was in that. He was the inspector.
Rowan Atkinson, yes.
Rowan Atkinson. Constable Goody was an effeminate sort of guy, wasn't he? He went around sort of posing.
He was a bit of a blundering fool.
And... I can see his face now. I know what he looks like. But I mean, how would I possibly know his name? And it's so irrelevant to this quiz anyway. What was his name?
James Dreyfus.
Well, how would I have known that?
Well, I don't know.
I thought James Dreyfus was in the. I thought he was in Jaws.
No, that was a different one.
That was Richard Dreyfus in Jaws.
That was Richard Dreyfus. Number 7. What is JMW Turner's full name? I.e., what does JMW stand for?
James.
No.
Martin William.
No. Joseph Mallord William Turner.
Oh, that's right, Mallord, yeah.
Where and when was he born?
Turner was born in Covent Garden in London.
Very good. That is very good. Woo! Any idea of the date?
Yeah.
I won't give you... I mean, you've got the point already.
No. One of them was born in 1775, the other was born in 1776.
What?
One was born in 1775, the other in 1776.
One what?
One of the painters, we're talking about Constable and Turner.
I'm just asking you about Turner.
Turner was born
I thought you were born twice. 1775 was right.
1775.
But funnily enough...
Well, what's your problem?
I just wanted to, if you know, because the interesting thing about Turner's birth is that actually the exact date is unknown. All they have is a record of his baptism.
Which was on April the 14th.
Yeah, and they think that he was born... You're cheating, aren't you?
I'm not cheating.
How do you know all this?
I know these things.
Right.
I'm told you I'm a student of the masters.
All right,
of
can
art.
we take all these papers away from you?
Yeah, sure.
You move everything you've got there.
Everything. There you go.
Number 9.
Everything. There you go.
What does JMW Turner have in common with you?
With me, well, I do own a property in Cheyne Walk, and that's where he lived in London after being
You
born.
own a property in Cheyne Walk?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, and that was where he lived after he was born in Covent Garden. Turner. I know. He painted a lot of boats, and I'm associated with boats because I live down in Portsmouth.
Yeah. That's not the answer.
He liked the light a lot, and I prefer the
and you
darkness.
You like to look into the light.
Into the light, I know what that means. And the other things about Turner are that Let me see. Oh, I tell you what, he never got married.
That's true.
He never got married. There you go.
And also, as he got older, he grew more eccentric.
Did he? Well, that's nothing to do with me, obviously.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're not doing too badly. I think so far you've only got 3 wrong.
Yeah, well, and by the way, one of them was about some stupid, idiotic police series on television.
You've got 6 out of 9, which is so far your highest ever score.
Yes.
Number 10. Which painting at the Tate Gallery is his most famous historic seascape?
That would be... That's the one about a shipwreck.
Well, it is a seascape.
Yeah. It's called... It's something like... Storm, Wind and Wave or something. No, it's something... What are you laughing at?
That's not the right answer.
Well, it's 3 words, isn't it?
No.
Yes, it is.
It's actually 4 words.
Well, what is it then?
The Battle of Trafalgar, which has most famous painting, and you're supposed to be an expert in
No,
Turner.
that wasn't his most famous painting.
And funnily enough, you didn't get that one right when you got all the others right after you moved all those papers away.
Oh, ridiculous. Nothing in the papers, you fool.
Well, anyway,
yeah.
So still 6 out of 10, which is a remarkable triumph for you, considering your usual average is 3 out of 10. So congratulations. I would say that you know more about Constable than you do about Turner.
Yeah.
But
of course I do. I live in Constable Country.
But you live in Constable Country?
Of course I do.
You live in Portsmouth.
No. You don't understand that one of my domiciles is in a place called Orwell Quay, which is the marina just outside Ipswich, where I go and sometimes...
But you never go there.
I do. I meet up with Mr. Brazil.
Right.
Mr. Brazil lives in Dedham Vale.
Right.
He lives in
That's why
Constable
you're
Country.
such an expert.
Yeah, exactly. I've been to the pub in East Burgoll with Al many a time for lunch, where Constable used to, have his lunch with his father and all that kind of stuff. I've been to Dedham Vale. I've been to all the places round there that Constable's associated with. I know where the Hay Wain was painted. And
well, we may have found finally a subject that you're an expert in, and that's John Constable.
Exactly.
Which is not bad at all. Mr. Porky Parry, for the first time, gets more than 50% in a quiz. That is truly remarkable. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast available in a few hours from now. Just look out for it on iTunes. We'll be sending out all sorts of links on the Twitter account at the Two Mics, of course. I'm not quite sure where you were there. A bit of a tardy return to the studio.
Well, I was going to check on Turner's most famous painting, and it wasn't the Battle of Trafalgar.
It's one of his most well-known paintings.
No,
well, why is it in the National Gallery then?
Wreckers on a Northumberland beach was no famous, and the one I was talking
about,
about,
that one either.
Wind, Speed and Fire, was another one about a train.
Earth, Wind and Fire.
No, Wind, Speed and Fire. Earth, Wind and Fire was a group, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So that was another question you nobbled me on. So
no,
you nobbled me on the silly one about the show.
Let's move on from the quiz.
That one. And frankly, I may have to withdraw from entering these quizzes because you tried to stitch me up so badly.
The listeners would never allow it.
And make me look like a fool in front
of an
audience.
You got 6 out of 10. Audience. You should be happy.
Yeah, but I should have a much better return.
To be honest, well, if it makes you feel any better, I think your knowledge of Constable was exemplary.
Thank you very much.
So that will keep you going for a while.
Excellent.
Now listen to this from Mr. Hang on a second.
I've
got this. Mr. Angry in London says, right then, I'd just like to point out that I was actually half asleep in bed up until a minute ago. No offence, chaps, I've got an early start. But I'm so incensed by that banning headers drivel I've just heard that I'm now fully awake and feel the need to text in. Who on earth do these soccer mums think they are, trying to ruin a beautiful game at grassroots level? What brazen cheek. Well, if they don't like how football is played, they should go back to not playing it and shut up.
Well, you see, this is what this programme's here for, to stimulate debate.
Yes, of course.
This is what we like to do. We like to stimulate debate, and you're very welcome to get in on the argument. Now, you just went on about gadgets, right?
Yes.
We're going to talk about dodgy lodgers in a minute, right?
Dodgy lodgers, yes.
But I want to talk to you about, you said about gadgets. I have been researching the driverless car situation.
Oh, yes.
Old friend of yours and mine, Caroline Graham, did a big feature on it in the Mail on Sunday. Did you see it?
I didn't see it,
and she was sitting there using her laptop while the car was driving
around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
yeah,
I was the one that said to you some months ago
that
this is something that's going to come in the very near future, and you poo-pooed it and said this will never happen.
Well, I don't believe you ever see it on the roads in this country because they're too crowded and all that. But I've been researching it, and the latest research paper says that it will lead to the abolition of speed limits.
Oh, really?
It'll have to. And the reason it'll have to is...
no, because it won't be any safer to drive in a driverless car, will it?
Yeah, and the reason it'll have to lead to the end of speed limits is because one of the features of a driverless car is that it has to keep up with the flow of traffic.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it causes obstructions and potential accidents. So it's geared to the speed of all the cars around it. Now, you know as well as I do that on an open stretch of motorway, the average speed the cars are going is 85 or 90 miles an hour. So the driverless cars will have to keep up with that.
But why would that have to change the speed limit, though?
Because once it's established that the driverless cars drive at that speed, they will then set the pace, because gradually there'll be more driverless cars than non-driverless cars, if you see what I mean. And eventually, because the technology is so good, you won't need speed limits. Why would you need speed limits if the cars are almost 100% guaranteed not to crash? Why would you need speed limits?
Well, the word almost, I think, is your answer, because you can't guarantee that a car won't crash. But, you know, the other
Well, you can't guarantee an aeroplane won't crash, but there's no speed limits on aeroplanes. Do you understand what I mean? Because they don't very often...
That's a ridiculous thing
to say.
No,
it's not. It's not, because aeroplanes very rarely crash unless something terrible goes wrong.
Well, they don't crash because they're going too fast, though, do they?
Well, sometimes they do.
No.
If they're going too fast landing, they crash. If they're not going fast enough when they take off, they crash.
Maybe there is a speed limit for when they land, then.
No, well, there is. It's 180 miles an hour. Didn't you know that?
Well, no, I didn't.
Everybody knows that. Everybody
I
knows.
didn't know that.
Everybody knows that a pilot has to brake.
You just said there weren't speed limits for planes.
No, you said that. You said that. No, you said that. You said that.
It's ridiculous. Look, the producer will back me up on this one. You were the one that said there's no speed limits for planes, and they don't crash, do they?
You said, yes, what I meant was...
There are speed limits for planes. The complete opposite, then.
No, at 36,000 feet, there are no speed limits for planes.
Correct.
Get that, goofball?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
No need to get annoyed.
But when a plane is coming into land...
There is a speed limit.
Obviously, if it was doing 550 miles an hour, which is what it does at 36,000 feet, it would literally hit the tarmac in a million pieces, wouldn't it? So there has to be a speed limit on a plane approaching landing. You and I have both seen planes coming into Heathrow a million times, or at LAX, or at JFK.
Yeah.
And, of course, they look as though they're just drifting out of the sky. And that's because I studied aeronautical engineering a little bit. And what it is a jumbo jet actually descends on a cushion of its own air and just sits down on the runway. It doesn't actually land. It sort of floats down. Well, it does land, obviously, but it doesn't propel itself down. It floats down on the cushion of air below it. And as it gets closer to the tarmac, the cushion of air becomes more and more compressed, and then that sudden boof, that you get when it hits the ground, boof. Sometimes it bounces.
It does.
If the pilot's had a bad journey, that's what happens.
I wonder whether, as a result of these driverless cars, that you might end up having driverless planes. Planes without pilots.
You've
got drones, haven't you?
We already have them, don't we?
We've got drones, yeah.
A, you've got drones, but B, you've got aeroplanes which are on automatic pilot for most of the journey.
George, as he would be called. Now, let's talk about the other thing that came up.
George? What's that? Is that from Airplane?
No, it's just one of the things, I think, that came from when they first started using these autopilot systems, and they gave it a name. Because, they're all still a bit RAF-like, aren't they?
Oh, I see, okay.
But what would be... I don't know whether Caroline Graham addressed this in the piece you read, but if you, say, for example, were on a driverless car and there was a speed limit, if you're the passenger, are you the person that gets the ticket? Because are you in control? Are you in control of the way that the car is programmed, if you like?
Well, I suppose you are. You must... I mean, you must at some stage in a driverless car be able to seize the controls, surely.
Well, you would have to, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because, I mean, supposing a hole opened up in the road ahead of you...
What if you got a puncture?
You got... Well...
I mean, there's all kinds of questions about it, really.
Do they have wheels? Are they...
Well, I think they would have wheels.
No, I thought they were like hovercraft-type vehicles.
No, that's the movie you've been watching. It's Back to the Future. By the way, Roger Federer just won the fourth set by 7-5. So now that you're such an expert in tennis, tell us what's going to happen next.
No, I'm not. What are you talking about? I mean, the momentum. I mean, if you want me to tell you psychologically what's going on, I can tell you that, right?
Well, no, what's going to happen now?
The momentum is now with Federer. 2 sets down, 2-2. Now he could go on, obviously, build on the momentum that he's stored up in his brain and his body to take this. It's a quarterfinal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And surge through into the semi-finals of the US Open. That's what I expect to happen.
Well, see, what I was going to say is he's now going to go to the 5th set, and then you would have made fun of me for saying, "Oh, well, everybody knows that."
Well, of course,
that's what I was looking for you to say.
It's a best of 5 sets, isn't it?
It is.
And as they've got 2 sets each, that 2 plus 2 is 4, so they've got to play another set, haven't they, you fool?
John in Sutton says, not for the first time, the two mics have messed up my sleep patterns. I would like to know what you must like about each other, what you most like about each other and most dislike.
Well, I mean, that's far too long a list on both sides. Well, no, a very short list on one side, very long list on another side to be able to go into it this time of night.
And quite a few people are suggesting that you might make clips of the week again. Material for Hawksby says, Hawksby and Jacob says, Roy, clips of the week, Mike Graham show around 3:35 a.m. Mike Parry talking about Raheem stealing, and within a minute he was picked up on something about whiffling when he meant to say waffling. And then he has a bit of a strop. It was very funny.
I don't think so.
You have had a few strops today. I don't know whether
I said waffling for waffling or waffling for waffling. Yeah. I don't know, but I mean, what does it matter? For goodness sake, people are picking on the tiniest little things.
I blame digital radio for this because, generally speaking, on a lot of the receptions of that you get on medium wave, which is not particularly good, you wouldn't really hear half this stuff. But now when you're listening on digital radio, it's very crystal clear. So every mispronunciation of yours is picked up and celebrated.
Well, that's because I don't mumble. Unlike some of our colleagues, it's someone sometimes, I don't, rings now. I enunciate my words. And enunciating my words.
Who you mean.
Enunciating my words means that obviously if the audience can hear every syllable of every word I speak, then occasionally I'm going to get, a minor mispronunciation. We were going to talk about lodgers.
Yeah, we are going to get round to that, but you keep whiffling on, you see, so that's why we haven't got there yet. But we will do it soon. Coming up next, though, we're going to talk about how your mobile phone will control your vacuum. TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two mics.
What's that record there?
That's Inspector Gadget. Have you ever seen Inspector Gadget?
No. What is it?
He's not related to anybody in the Constables of the Thin Blue Line. It was a cartoon, Inspector Gadget.
Really?
Yeah, he was one of these police guys who just had a lot of gadgets.
It was like a sort of bumbling cop.
Well, he was a sort of bumbling cop, but he had all these amazing gadgets, and he could turn anything into anything, and he could sort of chase people. And suddenly, he'd be flying in a little kind of mini helicopter. And
bit like the sheriff in Four Feather Falls. Do you remember that?
No.
In Four Feather Falls, in Four Feather Falls.
What show was that?
Well, it was a puppet show of this cowboy.
Puppet show?
Yeah, puppet show. This great cowboy he was the sheriff, but he had magic guns and.
I don't remember that at all. Was that here or in America?
It was here. It was here. Yeah. I wonder if any of our listeners remember it. In Four Feather Falls, in Four Feather Falls. And what happened what was magic about his guns was that like the traditional. I'll just stand up for a sec. The traditional cowboy, when he's got a confrontation in the, in the street in front of the saloon, he's
apparently it finished in 1960. This show,
he didn't. It couldn't have done. But anyway, what happens is they stand there like this. These guys,
right.
Just to explain to our listeners, I'm standing there now with my legs braced, arched, and both my hands are out at the side of my hips. Do you get it?
You don't look much like a cowboy.
No. And the idea is that as soon as you go for your guns, that's a draw, and you shoot each other, and one of you dies.
Right.
So you've got to get your guns out of the holsters before your opposition.
Yeah.
Well, where the sheriff in Four Feather Falls had an advantage was he had magic guns. So the guns just used to swivel and shoot the other guy anyway.
Before he didn't have to move his hands.
He didn't have to move his hands. So really, it was a bit of a, it was a bit duplicitous, that really, wasn't it?
Well, I'm afraid that ended before I was born, that show, so that's why I don't recognise it. Let's talk to somebody who's going to address something slightly more modern.
Right.
Mark Gurman. He's the senior editor of 9 to 5 Mac magazine. He's going to tell us about how we're going to be controlling all sorts of things now with our mobile phones.
Excellent.
Mark, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Mark.
Thanks for being with us. Now, the main reason for us doing this story in the first place was that there's going to be this new vacuum cleaner, intelligent robot vacuum cleaner that's coming out, made by Dyson, which is going to be using its own advanced vision system to navigate rooms, and you can control it with a smartphone app. Does that mean you can actually have your house vacuumed when you're not there?
Pretty much. I mean, the next big thing besides wearables and the new iPhone is going to be controlling many of the devices in your homes using your phone and your watch. So I think that's the next big frontier.
Right.
Apple has a service called HomeKit coming out later this month, and what that's going to allow you to do is easily integrate more apps into your phone to control things such as the new Dyson cleaner. So will you be able to control certain things in your house or you're not at home? Of course. Will the Dyson become one of them? Yeah. And I think it's a big market that's going to get really huge in the coming years.
Yeah, Mark, I have no doubt that what you're saying is on its way and the technology is there. But can I tell you, certainly in this country, 15, 20 years ago, we were all reading stories about driving home in your car and the advent of mobile phones. You could suddenly run a bath and control the temperature of the water in the bath so that when you got home, walked through your front door, you could go straight up to your bathroom and jump into this bath full of bubbles and all that kind of stuff. And we're all going to be doing this on a daily basis. It's never happened. I don't know anybody in this country who's ever run a bath from the technology available to him on the mobile phone, although we're told it's been available for years. Isn't all this a bit of a pipe dream, which is only going to be available to a very, very tiny elite of people who've got a lot of money?
Absolutely. You know, the technology's there, the access from Apple's there, but what's not there is the affordability, making this a mass consumer type of deal. And even in the States as well, it's kind of unheard of. But I think with Apple ushering in the technology over the next few months, it's going to want to push some developers of hardware like bathtubs, garage doors, lights and locks and safes to make their technology more affordable to work with the new iPhone.
Right.
So we'll see if that ends up happening. But you're totally right about that it's not really...
Now, one of the other things we're reading about at the moment, we were just talking about this before you came on, Mark, was driverless cars.
Yeah.
And you know, Google's in the forefront of all of this, and it seems as though in America, you know, there's more and more trials going on. How soon do you think it will be before we actually see properly driverless cars, certainly in this country, in any country, really?
You know, the technology is not perfect yet. From Google's work, I think the technology will be perfected maybe in the next 3, 4, 5 years. But that's only one side of the coin. The big picture here is mass adoption. It's very psychological. There's a whole marketing piece of this. Do people really want to trust the self-driving cars? It doesn't matter if the technology is perfect. Mom and dad or brother and sister, they might not be big tech fans. They might not believe in this. So there's always an element of getting people to believe in the product.
I mean, look, it will happen eventually. If you'd have told somebody 120 years ago that a football match taking place in Mexico can be available to people on a screen in London, nobody would have believed you. That was magic. You know, it wasn't going to work. So it'll happen eventually. It's just the pace of innovation and change, and particularly when somebody like Steve Jobs has sadly shuffled off this mortal coil, you wonder who's around to give this thing a commercial and practical application.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Funnily enough, there's a lot more texts and tweets coming in here, and we will be talking a bit more about some of these gadgets. But it sounds to me as though the driverless cars are quite a long way off. Here's one from somebody who doesn't give a name. Why doesn't Mike Perry just call his book The Bible? Terry says, how about Memoirs of a Muppet? Steve from Runcorn says, how about this 5 out of 10? Although since you got 6 out of 10 in that last quiz, then maybe it should be 6 out of 10. Here's another one from Kev. He says, how about Mystic Mug? I quite like that one.
Mystic Mug.
And Keep Calm and Parry On is one from Ben.
Quite like that.
And then Sean says, and this is one of your phrases actually, utter rubbish.
Well, why is that one of my phrases?
You say it all the time to me.
Well, because you talk it a lot of the time. In fact, a lot of the time you're talking utter rubbish, and I just let you drift on because I don't want to embarrass you in front of the millions who tune in to listen to us here at Talk Sport. You know, we just made a reference to the Bible. Did you know for the first time ever now, you won't be guaranteed to get a copy of the Bible if you walk into a major book retailer like Waterstones or WH Smith.
Was it not
they no longer designated as standard publications to stock.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Because was it not fairly recently that they removed all the Gideon's Bibles from hotel rooms?
Well, it's not from all hotel rooms. It's selected chains.
Right. Now, who've decided to do it?
Yeah, some chains have decided to keep Gideon's Bible there. Now, what song did Gideon's Bible feature in?
It's Partly Time from the Tower of Babel. Gideon's Bible. It's an Elton John song.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Well, if it is, there's another one, and it's Rocky Raccoon. The Beatles on the White Album.
That's right. Yeah, it's on that as well.
You know, Rocky Raccoon checked into his room only to find Gideon's Bible.
Gideon checked out.
Gideon checked out.
And was left in no doubt. It was about the start of Good Rocky's revival.
That's right. Absolutely right. You see, even you know the words, which, of course, I know fluently.
Yeah. There's an Elton John song, but it's Gideon's Bible
is there?
There as well.
Okay. So that I think that's interesting because what that means is is that are we now in a period of acceptance where we no longer have to designate ourselves as a Christian country? Because...
Well, there's a big debate around that, isn't there?
I bet you there's a Quran available in every bookshop in most Muslim countries if people want to buy a Quran and read it and worship from it and all that. So I find that quite astonishing that if people want a Bible, they can't always guarantee now to get it in a high street
But
bookshop.
presumably that's similar to the Gideon's Bible decision, that it's based on a chain or Waterstones or Smiths or whoever deciding themselves not to stock it.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. That is, yeah.
But quite often...
that's not called a Gideon's Bible, that's just a Holy Bible.
No, but I mean the problem...
Or a New Testament Bible.
Yeah, but the problem in this country now is that quite often you get decisions made by people, because they're trying not to cause offence in some way, and actually, nobody is offended. It's like, why are you making more of something than you need to?
I totally agree. Listen, before the night's over, mate, and we've got like
you
an hour...
keep telling me you want to talk about lodgers.
Well, we'll talk about lodgers in a minute. But look, we've got this morning's papers, right? We're lucky to get them earlier than most people. Most people don't see a paper until about 7 o'clock when it drops on their doormat, or they're on the way to the station, suddenly nip it in, quick paper, 35p.
Some of them, of course, will look at them electronically, digitally.
Well, increasingly, of course, people on trains do that with their tablets and all that. But anyway, look, I want to draw your attention to the fact that... Matt Dickinson, it is Matt Dickinson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Has written a book about has written a book about Bobby Moore, the latest book about Bobby Moore, and it is sensational because he's one of the great heroes. But he started the serialisation of the book today in the paper today, in his paper, which is Papers of the Times, as you quite rightly said.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? Distressing, upsetting, or strange.
It's kind of unmasked Bobby Moore, is that what it is? It's stories that we didn't know about.
Well, no, we all knew that Bobby Moore liked to drink.
Yeah.
But the first serialisation, the headline says, Bobby lived his life by this motto, win or lose, on the booze. England's revered World Cup captain was also king of the drinkers in West Ham's barroom revelries. And then that story starts and it goes on quite long. And there's a little subdeck here. And it goes on to say, as manager of Southend United, Bobby Moore still enjoyed a drink, especially when he recruited his old friend Malcolm Allison as assistant coach. And there's a story there, which is a strange story about him being manager of Southend, but being late for a game because he stayed in the pub. Now, all that is very sort of, that's chipping away at Bobby Moore's character, in my view.
And his reputation, I suppose. But I mean, again, football in those days was very much about drinking. There was a big drinking culture, as anybody here who played football, and even more recently than that, will tell you. It was only really, I suppose, 10 years ago that culture kind of moved out of the top flight of football, really.
I think you're absolutely right. There's a tremendous picture here, right? And it shows our erstwhile and still contributing old colleague Rodney Marsh in a boozer, right? And what about this for an array of legendary names in football? Rodney Marsh, and then Frank Lampard's father, Big Frank, as he's known, Alan Ball, George Best, Malcolm MacDonald and Bobby Moore, all holding up like half pints of beer, actually, in small row. But with them as well, amazingly, Kenny Lynch.
Really?
Yeah, well, I think it's Kenny Lynch.
He was very much part of that group, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, Kenny Lynch there, the comedian.
Yeah,
from him. Yeah.
I mean, everything revolved around drink to a large extent, in the same way that in a lot of people's workplaces that was the case, and now it just simply isn't anymore. But we'll talk about lodgers.
But it does revolve around your weekends down in the country, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing I do. I drink wine once in a while. It's not.
No.
Crime.
You have big amounts of wine at home on the weekends.
Look into the light, please. We're running out of time. Are we going to talk about lodgers? We'll try and do it coming up next on TalkSport.
Our house, it has a crowd. There's always something happening, and it's usually quite loud. Our mum, she's so house proud.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes. Got quite a few more reactions on that football heading story. We've got Michael here saying the soccer mums could have used Parry as an example for their lawsuit to FIFA. He must have headed a lot of footballs. I'm not quite sure what he means by that. Dan
he's trying to suggest that my noddle is slightly damaged over the years, but he's trying to make out that, clearly, because I wasn't a professional footballer, that my brain has been warped or bent or knackered by some other means, and he's trying to suggest that I'm a bit of a loony, and naturally I just dismiss that as tripe.
Now, Robert says, I can't believe that American lady was referring to heading as headbutting. Quite unreal. It was unusual that she was using that phrase. And then Dan says, A, it's football, not soccer. B, if you don't like the kids heading a ball, take them to American football where the wimps wear helmets. Well, I don't think you'd call American football players wimps if you ever met them in person, because one thing they are not is wimps.
Mike, the injuries that American footballers sustain are horrendous.
And that's with the helmet on.
With the helmet on, and that's probably why they sustain it. But when two American footballers hit each other at a massive velocity, they break each other's spines and all sorts of things. I mean, it's a horrendous catalogue of industries.
When you sometimes watch that, and funnily enough, the NFL season gets underway this weekend.
Yeah.
And 3 games coming. This is one of the things we said yesterday, actually. You know, England can't sell more than 40,000 tickets for a football match for the national side. Do you know that the NFL is bringing 3 games to the Wembley this season, and they are all sellouts already?
Yeah, well, I can imagine.
And that tells you an awful lot about what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But when you watch some of the way that they hit...
It's all a gimmick to me. It's a gimmick, it's a fanfare, it's an exciting social event and all that. Nobody goes there to watch American football. We don't like American football in this country.
Well, yeah, but we like it more, apparently, than England football, because England football is boring. But what I was going to say was, when you see them like spearheading into each other, you just can't believe they even get up from that sort of thing.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree. Now, you want to talk to me about lodgers, right?
Yeah, well, because you keep threatening to mention this lodgers story to me, but we haven't got to it yet because of all the waffling you've been doing.
The presence of the lodger is becoming increasingly more popular in our society. Now, you might say, oh, well, the economy's in recovery now, but it's not really, you know. Well, the economy's in recovery, obviously, in terms of the stock market, in terms of property, people buying houses and all that. Never mind all that. The basic Joe Soap working man like me, you know, and maybe you to a certain extent.
Well, you just told me you own a house in Cheney Walk.
Well, it's not a full ownership. It's an interest in. I should have qualified that.
Well, Cheney Walk is like Millionaire's Row.
Well...
it's one of them in London.
A friend of mine bought a house there for $5 million about 3 years ago and then sold it for $7 million 2 years later. He sold it last year for $7 million.
I mean, Frank Lampard's house is not a million miles away from there. It's in that general area, isn't it?
No, well, also, I think I'm pretty right. It's either Frank or his father own a pub round there as well. It's called the Pig Whistle or something like that.
The Pig and Whistle, yeah. It's not a pub as you and I would know a pub, though. It's one of those very posh pubs.
It's very posh, and you go and have dinner there.
Very plush carpets and very nice food.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, I just want to say that I don't think you would generally describe it as the Commonwealth Garden working man.
No. Look, if you work, you're a working man, aren't you? Now, it's part of I should say it's part of a property portfolio investment. Okay, that's
super.
That's a better way.
I don't know very many ordinary Commonwealth Garden working men that have property portfolios. Let's put it that way.
Well, you can. You can own as little as 1/100th of a property if you go into a trust fund, or not a trust fund, just like a fund, a property fund, and all that. It's a bit more than that, to be honest. But I mean, I'm just saying that the idea that I've got a house in Cheney Walk is nonsense, utter nonsense. Now,
well, I'm glad about that, because if you did have, I'd be wanting to come and stay there as well.
Well, you wouldn't get within 100 yards. So the presence of a lodger. Now, the only reason that I fear lodgers is because any sort of nutter you let into your house is potentially... you just don't know, do you? You simply don't know.
But more and more people are having to do it, I suppose. One, because they might find themselves getting crippled by the mortgage payments they're having to make, or
That's
something.
Right.
Or they might find that they've lost their job and the only thing they have is the house. They don't want to sell it. And a lot of people are living like lodgers as well. Well, look, Roger Federer's actually won 6-2 in the last set.
Incredible. And who predicted that?
Well, you did.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you all hear that? Did you hear that?
So you know,
even old MG, who's constantly putting me down, has actually said I brilliantly predicted the outcome of this tennis match. So there you go. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, folks.
Well, I've decided to operate on a new level with you, because it's a bit like having a small child. If you occasionally allow a little bit of praise, it makes you so happy. You're like a dog, actually, with a bone. You get so happy that I've said something nice about you that you won't be able to forget it.
I'm going to have words with you about your dog tomorrow night, by the way, just to let people know.
Well, we can talk about that tomorrow. But can we please also focus on this one story that you've been trying to talk about for 4 hours?
I'm trying to focus on it, but it was you who went off on the tangent then.
Well, because we're breaking news. Roger Federer's just won the quarter-final.
Yeah, pretty brilliant. That 2 sets down.
What a comeback.
3 sets up. Now he's going to win the cup. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There you go.
It's unbelievable.
Now, I had a phobia about lodgers a few years back.
Phobia?
Yeah, because when I owned a big house...
Another house?
Yeah, well, it was along the way, so to speak, to where I am now. And it had 4 bedrooms.
Oh.
And...
Was this the one where you paved over the garden?
It was, actually. I paid her the back garden, yeah. And anyway, so what happened is we had a bit of a left-wing government, and I'm apolitical, so I don't really care, but they were making noises about the amount of homeless people in the country. Right. And this was before, by the way, the gates had been opened to millions of immigrants coming to the country. But nevertheless, so I got it in my head, because somebody told me this, that eventually the government would start seizing spare bedrooms in people's homes. No, seriously.
You didn't really believe that?
Well, I did. I sort of got it in my head this was going to happen. And would target people particularly like me.
Yeah.
Because under the rules...
You said a bedroom tax for the rich.
Well, that's right. Under the rules of this particular government's policies, people like me shouldn't have big houses with 4 bedrooms if I'm only using one of them at a time, you see what I mean? And therefore, I'd be coerced into allowing homeless people to live in my other 2 bedrooms.
Homeless people?
Yeah, homeless people, yeah. And I got so worked up about this, I started, like...
You didn't start knocking down the walls and saying, I've only got 1 bedroom.
Well, no, but I started filling in the forms to say I'd only got 1 bedroom, because I didn't want them to know I had 3 other bedrooms, you see what I mean? Because I wasn't prepared to share the efforts of my lifelong labour with people who may have been taking advantage of my rewards in life. No, not even generosity, because I wasn't going to generously offer them. I was going to be forced to do it. So I did, and I made certain adjustments to the house to try and make out that they weren't bedrooms anyway. So I got rid of the beds and put things like office furniture and that kind of stuff, you see what I mean?
But then you run the risk, if you're running a business from there, that you get taxed at a different rate as well, don't you?
Well, I didn't even bother about that. The point is I was determined I wasn't going to have any homeless people living in my house. So,
How very charitable of you.
Well, it's not charitable, it's just that I can't live in an environment where I'm not... comparable and au fait with the people around me. And I wouldn't be comparable and au fait with people who had unfortunately found themselves in a homeless situation, because I'm not a charity and I wasn't there to help them.
No.
And charities exist to help these people, but I'm not one of them. And I didn't want to be a charity. And, it's like that bloke that you and I saw once.
I mean, you rent properties to people, don't you?
Well, yes, of course I do. Yeah, that's what you do. I mean,
but that's a commercial sort of situation. You're not worried about who you rent to, are you? Particularly? No. Or do you vet them very, very severely?
I vet them pretty closely. Well, I don't, but the management companies will have to. But, see, that's providing a service, Mike, to the country.
Yeah.
Because the government don't build enough houses, I have to help the government.
I have to help the government
by acquiring properties and then making them available for people to live in to help the housing shortage in this country.
Well,
that's what I do.
I mean, we talked about this the other night, funnily enough, and amazing number of calls from people who... there was one particular guy in North Wales who was in his 50s, and he'd been married before, but he'd sold his house, bought into a pub business, and the pub business had gone south. And he said, I'm renting property now. He says, I'll never be able to buy another house because I don't make enough money.
Yeah.
And the price of the rental is quite high because it's, private rental. And so many people now will never be able to buy a house.
No,
they'll never be able to get on a property ladder.
No, they won't.
Particularly in parts of South East England. Still other parts of the country where it's cheaper. But, so the rental market is going through the roof now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I feel sorry for those young people. I mean, the dream was always when I was, like, in my early 20s...
Well, you think about my daughter,
house.
for example, who's going to be around tomorrow night.
Yeah.
There's no way that she's going to be able to buy a house in London or a flat in London.
Is she going to be working in America?
Well, no, she's going to be living here now. But, there's no way that she can buy a place in London like, say, for example, you or I could think about in our 20s.
Yes.
She's in her 20s. Yeah. But, there's no chance for her to be able to buy a place on her own.
My first place in London was when I was 25, and I bought a 2-bedroom flat. It was actually like a maisonette, because you went in through the front door and the kitchen was on the right, the lounge was through there, and there was a set of stairs up to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom.
We call that a duplex in New York.
Yeah, a duplex, that's right, it was. But there's only 1 bathroom, you see. Now, I'd never live in a property now with only 1 bathroom for obvious reasons.
One of you.
Yeah, I know, but I need 2 bathrooms. And
why?
Well, in case anybody else comes, they can use the other bathroom, because I don't want to use my bathroom. You see what I mean? I don't like having people in my bathroom. Yeah, I've got a guest bathroom, yeah. And, you get workmen who need a bathroom or something like that. I don't want to use my bathroom. So...
You've got a lock on it, then, from the outside?
No, I just instruct them not to use it, it's as simple as that. But the point I'm trying to make here is I bought that at 25 for £30,000 when I was earning £15,000.
Right.
So I bought, and I had a good job as a reporter on the Daily Express, but at 25, earning £15,000, I bought a very decent flat for twice my salary.
Right.
Now, a reporter on the Daily Express today, about the same age, probably earns about £40,000.
Yeah, they need to earn 125.
Of course they would, because the idea of trying to buy anything in London for £80,000 is a joke. You could probably buy a garage or literally a shed, but you couldn't buy anything else.
No, absolutely shocking. Once again, I'm afraid we're a little bit later than advertised. We are the Two Mics. Loads more to come. We're going to do the winners and losers of the week next. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the Two Mics, Mike Parry and Mike Graham. There will be a podcast of the Two Mics out in a few hours' time. Some people saying it's not long enough, but, we're going to be struggling. We're going to be looking at this podcast to see if we can make it a little bit longer. Don't know whether we can or not. It's all about.
I'm sure we can. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, exactly right.
And there's a will in this building to get that podcast out to you folks who want to listen to it. Because let's face it, we're not all around in the middle of the night, but those who are get to hear it first.
Yes, exactly. Why are you talking in a kind of singing voice?
Well, I just thought, it's happy time.
This is what happens to you, isn't it? You start to go a bit mad after about the fourth hour.
No,
we're doing winners and losers, right? Let me just read you this very, very quickly.
Okay,
Mr. Parry, the sheriff in Four Feather Falls didn't have magic guns. The illusion was that he was so fast on the draw that you never saw his arms move. That's David Blackpool.
No, that's not true. He had magic guns. Right. He used to swivel in his holster.
All right, now I don't know whether you've had an opportunity to pick your winners and losers for this week, because if you haven't, I don't mind going first, but you can tell me who your losers are if you wish.
OK, you want me to tell you who my losers are?
Yes, I do. That's what I just said.
OK. The television audience of America, because they've lost Joan Rivers.
Yes.
That's my first loser.
All right.
OK. My second loser is Prince Harry.
OK.
Because he's just past 30. Therefore, the flush of youth that you enjoy throughout your 20s is no longer there. And, of course, my third loser is... It's not Roy Hodgson, because that's far too obvious. Yeah. That's probably on your list.
You accused me of being obvious last week.
Yeah. So it's not going to be Roy Hodgson. It is the man who is the general manager of Wembley Stadium PLC.
Yes. That's a good one, actually, because, as we said, with lower attendances and less money coming in, I think they're going to be a little bit worried. My one is not actually Roy Hodgson on that front. It's actually England fans, because I think England fans are being shown a little bit of disrespect by Roy Hodgson, particularly after this outburst of his, which, although he's kind of swearing at the media, in a way, he's also swearing at any England fan who's been critical of England's performance, and many of them have been, because they're so critical of it, they don't actually want to go and see it. He says that people are wrong to criticise a team that only gets 2 shots on target against Norway, and I think he's wrong about that. Yeah. So England fans are the losers.
It's a bit like, in a way, isn't it, the boss of the BBC lashing out and saying we do what we want.
Yeah.
Because they're in the same position.
Yeah.
The BBC are funded by the people who watch TV in the same way as Roy Hodgson is funded by people who watch and attend football matches.
Exactly right. So that may be what we end up agreeing with. I'm going to put South East Railway down as losers because they
that's
can't.
A personal thing, though,
because they can't run a railway. No, it's not. It doesn't affect me. I mean, if you go onto the South East Railway Twitter feed on any given day, you've got loads and loads of people complaining about cancelled trains. Why does this train stop at a place that it's not supposed to stop at? Why?
That's because you had an unfortunate experience last night. But
I'm not the only one.
I think that's rather selfish.
And I've had many of them. And my final one, you'll like this one, is Lewis Hamilton. Still a bad loser, because later on today there's going to be practice for the Italian Grand Prix, and he's still moaning and groaning about his spat with Nico Rosberg. Rosberg came out and made an apology to him and said that he recognised that he perhaps could have done more to avoid crashing into Lewis Hamilton. It wasn't quite an admission of doing it deliberately.
I totally disagree with you.
But listen to Lewis Hamilton. The guy has a chance now to put it all behind him and to remain, kind of part of the team. And when he's asked about, how the relationship is going, he says, trust is a big word, and it is not something I would particularly apply to racing on the track.
Well,
so he's basically saying he doesn't trust the guy.
Well, why would you trust him? His opponent, who's supposed to be his teammate, took 25 points off him in the last race by deliberately ramming into him and disabling his car. How can you trust a guy like that? The guy is an absolute skunk.
He denied doing it deliberately.
He's an absolute rat. He denied doing it deliberately. He's lower than the belly of a snake in terms of his comradeship.
Can't get any lower than that.
OK. In terms of his comradeship to a fellow motor racing driver in the same team, it's quite obvious that Nico Rosberg is in it for himself as a result of his inflated ego and his inflated ability of himself. And that is why he decides he can treat Lewis Hamilton, a solid, working class boy, dragged himself up by his bootlaces
Rubbish.
in Britain. He can treat him dismissively, and it's elitism all the way down. And I tell you what is the worst indictment of this, that Mercedes haven't come out now and sacked Rosberg for his appalling act of cheating.
He's about to win the Drivers' Championship.
Appalling act of cheating. Well, I think what they should do is they should go to the motor racing body and say, we're sacking Rosberg, but the condition is you've got to award his points for the victory in the last race.
Oh, yeah, that would make things
to
right.
Lewis Hamilton, because he's the other team driver who's taken out of the race when he was leading the race, and it is a Mercedes team right to allocate those winning points where we want. That's the way to sort it. That is the way to sort it. Nobody else has thought of that solution. I've just come up with that solution.
Yeah, it's
right?
not a solution.
It is
rubbish.
a solution. It is a solution.
Well, we have to decide on losers. I think we can decide that the England fans and a combination of England fans and the general manager of Wembley Stadium, I think, should be the losers of the week.
Yes, I agree.
We agree.
Well, there
on
we
it.
go.
Let's
there
go
we
for the winners.
Right.
Everyone's a winner, baby. That's no lie. That's no lie. You never fail to satisfy.
So, shall I go first with the winners?
You go first.
Now, it was a fascinating story that I saw just the other day, and we talked a lot about books in the last week or so.
Yes.
Here's a guy who wrote a debut novel. His name is Stephen S.J. Watson, he's known as.
Yes.
And he was a nurse in the NHS, and on a night shift, he used to write part of a book. And he eventually finished it. It's a thriller called Before I Go to Sleep. Now, not only
it's
was
rather
it...
obtuse, isn't it?
Well, not really. Before I Go to Sleep is about somebody who loses her memory, suffers from amnesia, and can't actually remember anything that happens. And
yes.
So when there's a murder committed, it's quite an interesting book. Anyway, he sold more than 4 million copies. It's been published in more than 30 countries. Not only that, but this week he's been talking about how Hollywood is now in the process of making a film of it, and it's Nicole Kidman to star in it. And Nicole Kidman apparently read the book, loved it, wanted to play the lead.
Yeah.
So I think this guy is an absolute winner. I'd be amazed if we can find anybody better than that. That's my first one. The second one is 3,800 passport workers who, despite the fact that nobody could get a passport for the large bulk of the pre-summer period, some people were waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. 3,800 of these people have been paid bonuses up to £5,000 each for doing such a great job. These are the same people who went out on strike, by the way.
Yeah.
Which seems to me to be...
And where are they getting the bonuses from, and on what basis?
Oh, they're getting the bonuses because they met their targets. That's what the civil service is all about. It's astonishing. And the final winner of the week has to be Louis van Gaal. Even though he got a draw 0-0 with Burnley last weekend, he's been told, according to the papers this morning, you can just keep spending, Louis. There's another 50 million on its way to you, and in the January transfer window, they're going to push the spending since Sir Alex Ferguson walked away from Manchester United up to around 250 million quid.
It's got to win an awful lot more until I can call him a winner, believe me.
OK, well, what were you three then?
Right, my first winner, and this is unbeatable, the manager of Norway, after England's performance on Wednesday
Well, hang on, he
night.
lost, though.
Sorry? I'm sorry, I don't mean that. I mean the manager of Switzerland. Manager of Switzerland. That's what I mean.
The manager of Switzerland?
We're manager of Switzerland.
Well, he hasn't won anything yet.
No, but the point is, the manager of Switzerland will be licking his lips and thinking, after England's appalling perforance against Norway...
Yes.
Sorry, I got the name of the country.
Yeah, no, it's easy to confuse Norway and Switzerland.
Of course it is. They're both Scandinavian countries. And
Did you say they're both Scandinavian countries?
Well, one's Scandinavian, the other one looks a bit Scandinavian.
Not.
Well, it's sort of, isn't it?
So actually, no, they're both not Scandinavian countries.
All right, they've both got a lot of snow in the winter. All right, well, that'll suit you. That'll suit you.
Mountains.
Both snowy countries, okay? A lot of mountains and all that.
How would you describe the snow? Is it as white as a tin of Dulux paint?
Yeah, that's funny, do you?
I do. I'm never going to forget it.
And where does that come from?
It comes from your book.
It's not my book.
It is.
Telling you, that's Alan Brazil's book.
It's the worst writing in the world.
And that's what he said to me. Anyway, the manager of Switzerland is the first winner because he will now benefit from the appalling state of English football.
Yes, I quite like that.
Play. Second one, every immigrant in Calais who wants to come to this country, they're winners because it's a shambolic situation.
They're going to get here eventually,
They're going to get here eventually.
Yeah.
And the third one, Kelly Brook, because she serialised her new book this week and pointed out that Eddie Irvine once rang her up when she was 18 and said, I'd like to take you out for dinner.
Right.
No, hang on, it's Northern Ireland, isn't it? You know, I want to take you out for dinner, Kelly. Yeah. I'm going to fly my jet over from Monaco. Is there an airport near your house? And she lived in a council house in Kent. And she was so bemused, she went and got the Yellow Pages to look for airports to ring him back and say you can land your plane.
It's not a bad line, though, is it?
What a jerk, honest to God.
Well, he was just showing off.
He was 14 years older than her. He was 32, she was 18.
And did she go out with him?
Once to Nobu in London, where he bought her a seaweed salad, and she said it was the most revolting food she'd ever eaten. It was mushy, salty, horrible, stuck in her teeth.
I went to Nobu once.
Yeah,
it was,
she never saw him again.
It was not a particularly pleasurable experience, and also it was one of the. There was two of them. There's one in there was one in Canary Wharf actually, which is a very ritzy one.
Oh yeah.
And then the second one was there was one inside the just by the Hilton. No, and then there was the third one I think around the back in Mayfair. But you can't book to get there, so you go in, you sort of have to stand around for ages.
Yeah, you got to be famous and all that.
I went there with somebody famous, and
who was the famous person?
It was Carol. What's her name? Who used to be Cherry Blair's assistant. You know.
Oh, Carol Kaplan.
Carol Kaplan. Yeah.
I know her well.
Yeah, and we went there for dinner.
She goes to Everton games because she's a friend of Jenny Seagrove's.
Oh, is she? Right. Okay. Well, you must say hello to her next time you're there with the thespians. Yeah. And we had we got quite a nice table, but it's really busy, and the food was very, very strange indeed. You wouldn't like it.
No, well, I wouldn't like it. I don't like seaweed. I'm with Kelly Brook on that one, the best-looking woman in the world. I wouldn't want to stuff wet seaweed full of salt into my face because it'd make me feel ill.
Yes, I'm sure it would.
Yeah.
Now, we've got lots more to do.
Well, hang on, what's the winner of this one, then?
What's the winner?
Who's the winning winner?
The winning winner, I think, is going to have to be... it's between...
The manager of Switzerland.
And Louis van Gaal, I think.
Louis van Gaal. Well, he hasn't won anything yet. I would say manager of Switzerland, without a shadow of a doubt.
Who also hasn't won anything yet, but I don't mind giving you that.
Thank you. And I got the loser of the week as well, didn't I?
Well, we shared the loser.
No, we
agreed on
it.
Did we?
Oh.
Well, everything's a competition to you,
okay.
isn't it? You can download the Two Mics podcast from iTunes every Tuesday and Friday for a regular dose of wisdom. Just during the period of Wilf McGuinness and all that crap.
Yeah, well, Wilf McGuinness came in first.
Insight.
Guess who Italy we've got? Malta, Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, Norway.
Who? What was that last one?
Bulgaria.
And observation.
They've got 5 headlines which knock Owes at Mesl on the front.
That's the Two Mics podcast on iTunes every Tuesday and Friday.